Meet Bayi, the big boss of an elite squad of awakened badasses known as the Divine Core. So, in this world, magic decided to show up. And surprise, surprise, it brought along demons and their nasty little dungeons for the ride. And that's where guys like Bayi get their glow-up, awakening special powers. Naturally, his crew is the top-tier squad in the whole organization. Today's agenda? A little pest control. Specifically, taking out a demon king named Belelfagor. This guy's supposed to be a big deal, a triple S-class threat who's mastered all 5 elements, basically making him a walking final boss. Oh, and Bayi and the gang got their marching orders straight from the gods themselves. So, into the demon's lair they stroll, and Bayi gives the signal, letting his squad know it's showtime. This is, like, the 100th high-level demonic cave this crew has decided to crash. On the roster, we've got the lovely Ling Yu, Han Xiaoling, and the ever-brooding Lucian. Because this was predicted to be a real headache, the mission got slapped with an L-class purge rating, you know, the absolute highest rank there is. However, the team is practically bouncing off the walls, all because they were promised some sweet vacation time after they dunk on Belelfagor. With flawless teamwork, the squad just lets loose, unleashing a world of hurt on the attacking demons. Bayi's at the front, and they're slicing through these chumps like it's nothing, with swift and precise attacks. I mean, what do you expect? Every single member of the Divine Core is a top-tier L-rank warrior. After a whopping few minutes of coordinated effort, the team mops the floor with the entire dungeon and sends the Demon King Belelfagor packing for good. Everyone's high-fiving, chattering about what a total cakewalk that was. Except, of course, for Lucian, who's not buying it. He feels like that was way too easy for an L-rank gig. And you know what? Bayi's on the same page. The intel report specifically mentioned the Demon King had 5 elements and some kind of hidden trump card. But just as he's putting his big brain to work, Ling Yi ambushes him with a hug from behind, demanding to know if he's buying them a victory feast. Totally over her antics, he shoves her off and tells the crew they're hitting up their usual dinner joint. Han's just shaking his head, baffled that the captain is fumbling the bag with Ling, but right then, they realize their 5th wheel is totally MIA. The dude didn't lift a finger during the fight and has been a ghost ever since. Not that anyone's worried. I mean, the mission's done, right? Suddenly, Mr. Missing in Action pops up right behind them, hand raised, and announces that the Time's real-time's purge operation is just beginning. In the next instant, a projectile smashes right into Han's skull. And he's instantly deleted. The whole team freezes, staring in disbelief at Han crumpled on the ground, with the top half of his head just gone, and a nasty red puddle spreading across the floor. While the whole squad is still trying to process what just happened, the backstabber drops a bombshell. He's on a holy purge mission, courtesy of the big man upstairs. That's when Bayi notices his body has decided to stop listening to his brain. And our villain of the week gleefully explains they've been chowing down on paralysis, powder-spiked breakfast for the last month. Talk about a balanced diet. With a flick of his wrist, Mr. Betrayal whips out his divine skill to tie up the rest of the crew. A little something called Forbidden Vines, which, you guessed it, completely locks them down. He starts monologuing about how this whole eliminate the team gig required some serious prep time, gloating like he just hit the jackpot. Meanwhile, Bayi and the gang are just trying to get a straight answer. Dude, why? The traitor just shrugs, saying it's nothing personal, just God's will to yeet all the L-class warriors out of existence. To really drive the point home, he cranks up the vine squeeze on Bayi and his pals, turning their questions into screams of agony. As they start hacking up blood and fading out, they're still stuck on a loop, wondering why their buddy turned on them. Bayi, ever the Boy Scout, sputters that the Divine Core followed all the rules and totally didn't deserve this. I mean, they were total goody two-shoes, right? So Bayi demands to know the reason, and the traitor just smirks. Since when does God need a reason to squash some bugs? He then saunters over to Bayi, tightens the leafy necktie a bit, and donuts him right through the chest. Ouch. Bayi's last thought is probably, but we were family. After all, these guys were a tight-knit crew for a solid 10 years, practically joined at the hip. The traitor just cackles, basically calling Bayi a complete simpleton for believing that. He lays it out cold. Family? Please. From day one of joining the Divine Core, he was a double agent, playing the long con for the gods. So yeah, Bayi and his squad were nothing more than lab rats. The traitor's whole friend act was just research for the final exam. And with that final truth bomb, Bayi and the team's health bars hit 0, and they all faceplant onto the floor. Our Boy Scout turned villain stands over them and gives Bayi a quick little head pat with a bullet. And so, on May 22nd, 2125, Bayi and his entire team of L-class legends got completely wiped. As their corpses decorate the floor, the traitor just strolls off, probably to book his tropical vacation. But just as Bayi's screen is about to fade to black, a mysterious voice pops up, talking about making some kind of deal. Next thing he knows, he's decked out in chains and in some seriously spooky new digs. And who's standing there? Some slick, suited-up dude, radiating final boss's energy. A closer look reveals it's none other than Belugor, the one and only Demon King. Bayi's brain short-circuits, trying to figure out how that guy is still breathing. Belugor just smirks at him, basically saying, "Dude, you think a top-tier Demon King goes down that easy? How cute. They're trapped in his soul domain, where the whole freaking kingdom is basically his health bar." Totally over the Demon King's monologue, Bayi tells him to cut the crap and get to the point. Seeing Bayi is about to pop a blood vessel, the Demon King decides to float a little deal. Turns out, Belelphegor's trump card is a little something called life regression. He straight up tells Bayi he can hit the rewind button on his entire life, giving him a do-over to fix his catastrophic failure. After a brutal flashback of his squad getting wiped out, Bayi doesn't even blink before taking the Demon King up on his offer. He's absolutely seething, vowing to make the traitor and the gods who pulled the strings regret they were ever born. The Demon King is all smiles, and as a little bonus, he throws in another party favor for Bayi. Belelphegor's own heart. Bayi's like, "Hold up, why are you helping me out?" But gets yeeted into the past before he can get a straight answer. The next thing he knows, he cracks open his eyes, and he's back in a classroom, with his teacher, Huang, screaming in his face. Somehow, Bayi has time-traveled 20 years into the past, to the year 21,105. This was back when he was just a middle school punk at the National Awakened Academy, before he even got his powers. Bayi is completely floored, realizing he actually went back in time. Meanwhile, the teacher is ripping into him for snoozing in her class, of all classes, the one right before his big awakening ceremony. As a punishment, the teacher banishes him to the back of the room. Still reeling from the shock, he does the walk of shame to the back, gawking at faces he hasn't seen in almost 20 years. The teacher drones on with her lesson, explaining the 5 main elemental powers: lightning, flower, cloud, nuclear, and stellar. Yeah, flower power is a thing. Apparently, you only get one element, no take-backsies. The teacher then uses herself as an example, flexing that she has the super rare cloud element. She then breaks it down further. Elements are split into 3 categories based on how they sync up with your body: combat, support, and special. She explains that a standard party is basically like a boy band, made up of the 5 elements, each with a different role. She points to the school's own guild team as an example, which has a stellar mage, a cloud warrior, a nuclear bard, whatever that is, and a lightning assassin. The teacher then pumps up the students' egos, calling them all special snowflakes and reminding them that Awakening Day is the biggest day of their entire lives. There are nearly 100 known awakened professions, ranked all the way from dust tier at the bottom to celestial at the tippy top, with ember and abyss ranks somewhere in the middle. These kids only get one shot at this whole awakening thing, and she makes it crystal clear that the stats they roll will pretty much decide their entire future. No pressure, right? After class? Alright, it's Judgment Day, and the students are lining up for their big awakening ceremony. Our boy Bayi spots his classmate, who he so creatively nicknamed 4 Eyes, getting shaken down by some local punk. This chump's name is Hong Zong Shang, who fancies himself a big-shot E-rank stellar assassin, and for some reason, this makes him Mr. Popularity. Bayi just rolls his eyes. Same old story, different day for a professional bully like Hong. Just as Hong's about to collect his protection fee, the teacher swoops in to crash the party. She lays down the law, reminding Hong that school isn't his personal shakedown racket. But Hong, with all the arrogance of a king, tries to spin some tale about how 4 Eyes ran into him, and this was just, fair compensation. Then the dude has the audacity to tell her the only reason she still has a job is because she's easy on the eyes. With his little speech over, he and his goon squad turn to leave, shoving Bayi out of the way like he's a piece of furniture. Bayi, cool as a cucumber, doesn't even flinch. He just watches the teacher make sure 4 Eyes is okay. Turns out, Teacher Huang is a real one, all tough on the outside, but genuinely looks out for her students. And Bayi knows this firsthand, remembering how she helped him out in his past life, right after his own awakening. Speak of the devil, an announcement comes through. It's teacher Huang's class's turn for the awakening chamber. Playing the den mother, she tells her kids to keep their cool so nobody gets hurt. See, in this world, there are two ways to get your superpowers. You've got the natural awakening, which is what our favorite bully Hong experienced, and it's the entire reason his ego is the size of a planet. This natural pop usually happens to jocks and gifted kids when their emotions go into overdrive. Then there's the artificial way, where all the regular folks with a glimmer of potential get shoved into the awakening chamber. This fancy box is the brainchild of some seriously smart scientists. Once you're inside, the thing basically cranks your emotions and adrenaline up to 11. It's designed to force start any dormant powers you've got, because hey, you only get one shot at this. For most people, this is their one and only lottery ticket to a better life. A few of Bayi's classmates have already gone in and came out with some pretty sweet-looking professions. One kid even awakened with the blue tier profession, which is a solid amber class. Finally, it's our main character's turn at the plate. The teacher tells him to stay focused, and with a nod, Bayi steps into the chamber. Now, remember, in his past life, Bayi awakened as an E-rank nuclear warrior, a class so bad it's basically in the dust tier, unanimously voted the most useless profession ever. That pathetic awakening basically put a giant kick me sign on his back for his entire life, and it took him hitting S rank to finally pop his rarest awakening. Stepping into the chamber, Bayi was fully expecting another garbage tier profession, same old story. But then, his jaw hit the floor when the system just glitched out. The chamber sputters to life, detecting not one, but a whopping 5 different elements. A fire ignites in Bayi's core as the system flashes a message he's never seen before. Infinite awakening. The system practically tells him he's hit the jackpot. He can pick absolutely any class from any of the 5 elemental types for his starting gig. And get this, Bayi finds out he can level up the other classes once his main one is maxed out. He nearly faints when he realizes the system also threw in elemental accumulation for free. Turns out, he can stack new classes from the lowly dust rank all the way to celestial, and they keep all their perks. On top of all that, Bayi even gets a shot at unlocking the legendary hidden rank that sits above celestial. It finally clicks. This insane power-up is all thanks to the Demon King's gift. He'd been handed the ability of infinite awakenings, a cheat code that shouldn't even exist. The system then lays out the rules. Pick one starter class, and the other elemental bars get wiped for now. After some serious thought, Bayi makes his choice. He strolls outside to find his teacher, who's practically bouncing with excitement to hear the news. With a perfect straight face, Bayi delivers the tragic news that he awakened as a nuclear warrior, which is pretty much the bottom of the barrel, absolute worst quality in the green class. Huang's face falls, but like the good teacher she is, she rallies and tries to cheer him up, saying, "Hey, even the green class has produced some incredible heroes." She pleads with Bayi not to lose hope, but he just gives her this pitiful look and says there's really no need to comfort him. Of course, Hong just has to overhear this and, like clockwork, shoves his nose where it doesn't belong, immediately starting to trash-talk Bayi. He scoffs, saying the teacher's just feeding him false hope, and that reality is a whole lot crueler. Hong sneers, reminding Bayi that being a dust class means he's officially at the bottom of the food chain. Not done with his ego trip, Hong keeps on running his mouth, telling Bayi that the gods only favor the strong, and the weak are meant to be stepped on. That little mention of the gods instantly sets Bayi on edge, but he keeps a perfect poker face while Hong spouts his garbage. He smugly informs Bayi that he'll have to get used to the back row in class, because that's just how the world works. See, the celestial ranks get the front row seats, followed by Abyss, then Ember, and way in the back, the dust rank losers. Dust rank warriors are basically seen as trash, only good enough to hang out with other low-tier scrubs. Hong doubles down, saying no amount of grinding will ever let Bayi escape his trash-tier fate, calling it a complete waste of effort before getting all up in Bayi's personal space to run his mouth. But Bayi has officially run out of patience, snatching the coffee cup from Hong's hand and giving him a free facial. Hong is absolutely stunned, his brain short-circuiting as he tries to process the sheer audacity. He furiously demands to know what the hell Bayi thinks he's doing, to which Bayi coolly replies that his voice is just annoying static. Bayi's epic combo of disrespect is more than enough to trigger Hong, who decides it's time to teach this F-rank a lesson in pain. He winds up and throws a haymaker straight at Bayi's face. Hang tries to intervene, but it's a lost cause. Little does this chump know, Bayi was ready for this from the start. Just before the fist connects, Bayi casually summons a sword of pure light, effortlessly blocking the attack. He then parries the blow, sending Hong flying across the room and leaving everyone's jaws on the floor. Hong eats dirt hard, while Bayi just stands there, looking like he barely even tried. Spitting up a bit of the red stuff, Hong struggles to comprehend how he just got completely owned. The peanut gallery is in total disbelief at what they just witnessed. Apparently, Bayi didn't screw up. He intentionally picked the nuclear warrior class because he's already a grandmaster with it. See, this was his main class in his past life, so he knows every single cheat code and exploit. Hong staggers back to his feet, his pride completely shattered, and tries to save face by calling it a lucky shot. He puffs out his chest, declaring he's an abyss ranker, a whole different species from bottom feeders like Bayi. But Hang, with her sharp perception, knows that wasn't luck in the slightest. She instantly recognizes that Bayi just pulled off a top-tier movement skill, one exclusive to the warrior class. Hang knows that parry skill is legendary. It not only negates an attack but reflects its full force right back at the sender. And she's absolutely floored to see Bayi execute it so flawlessly, a technique her own master couldn't nail after 10 years of grueling practice. What's really baking Hang's noodle is how Bayi, a total newbie who just awakened, already possesses the combat instincts of a seasoned veteran. While Hang is deep in her analysis, Hong, done with talking, whips out a short sword, dead set on putting Bayi in his place for good. Oh, Hong is fuming now, promising to humiliate Bayi in front of the entire school, and Bayi, he just stands there, looking bored. He then drops the bomb that he picked this so-called dust class on purpose. He knows that soon enough, all these haters are going to see just how overpowered the dust class really is, but by then, it'll be way too late for them to jump on the bandwagon. The crowd goes wild as the two square up for round 2. There's just one tiny problem. Using powers to throw hands is a big no-no on school grounds. See, Hong's dad is a big shot official, and to top it off, his uncle is the dean of this very school. Bayi, on the other hand, is a total nobody with zero connections, meaning he's the one with everything on the line. Four Eyes is freaking out, thinking he'll get expelled if he throws down with Hong, so he desperately asks the teacher for a way out. Wasting no time, the teacher decides to play hero and steps right in. She's yelling at them to knock it off, but Hong is already seeing red and wants to make Bayi pay for that epic humiliation. Hong threatens to absolutely wreck Bayi, even if the guy gets on his hands and knees and begs for mercy. In his own head, he's some kind of chosen one, while Bayi is just a bottom-tier loser. Even the teacher knows Hong isn't just blowing hot air, since the power gap between them is gigantic. Hong is an abyss rank warrior, which grants him a ridiculous 200% boost in all his stats. Abyss ranks are just built different because their base attributes are double that of a dust rank right from the get-go, and they keep growing while dust ranks are permanently stuck at level 1. Not a single person watching, including the terrified Four Eyes, thinks Bayi has a snowball's chance in hell. They're all just waiting for him to get completely flattened. Four Eyes totally agrees that Hong is a piece of work, but he's managed to survive by playing the fool to dodge drama. He's convinced that steering clear of Hong is the only smart move, since a direct confrontation will only end in disaster. The second he's finished sizing up his opponent, Hong makes a beeline for him. The teacher is panicking, screaming at Bayi to watch his back. She's guessing Bayi is planning to pull off that parry trick again, but she knows it's a long shot since that skill absolutely demolishes your stamina. Plus, the insane speed Hong is closing in with would make a parry pretty much useless. Even Hong is smugly confident he's got this in the bag. Bayi, however, just flashes a grin. He has zero intention of dodging because he's got a whole other card to play. Just as Hong is about to connect, he activates his flash blink skill. It's an insane, instantaneous flash that lets him phase right through solid objects. It was over in less than the blink of an eye, and before Hong even knew what hit him, Bayi had already tagged him in a very, very sensitive spot. He starts coughing up blood, trying to wrap his head around how Bayi suddenly teleported behind him. He slams the ground in a fit of pure rage and humiliation, as the students just stand there in absolute shock. None of the spectators even caught a flicker of what Bayi pulled off. The only thing their eyes registered was Hong suddenly face-planting into the ground. Even the teacher was completely mystified. However, the class president, Qian, actually saw the entire, unbelievable move. It dawns on Qian that Bayi just used a basic warrior skill at its absolute max level during their scrap. Meanwhile, back in the peanut gallery, the students are all wondering what the heck just hit Hong. Over on the status screen, Bayi clocks a tiny attribute boost from wiping the floor with his opponent. However, He's completely underwhelmed, thinking the points are basically pocket change. He knows the real EXP comes from hunting demons, and he's itching to get back to it as soon as possible. Still sprawled on the ground like a sack of potatoes, Hong isn't ready to tap out. He screams at Bayi not to leave, yelling that they're not done, then snatches his knife and goes for a cheap shot from behind. But before he can even connect, a booming voice orders them to knock it off. It's the school dean, Hong Lin, who also happens to be Hong's uncle. Lin immediately starts roasting his nephew, telling him he's already embarrassed himself enough for one day and ordering all the students to scram. The word home suddenly flips a switch in Baiyi's brain. Oh, right, he actually has one of those. He'd totally blanked on it, since he was just reborn and his parents were long gone in his previous life. Then it hits him like a truck. Something awful is supposed to happen today. Before the dean can even say his name, he just bolts, leaving everyone, including a stunned Hong, in his dust. The dean is left speechless for a second, then rounds on Hang, telling her to get her student on a leash. He promises to conveniently forget this whole mess ever happened, and Hang quickly thanks him. Later, Hong slinks after his uncle to his office to try and spin the story. He tries to argue that Bayi just got lucky, but his uncle absolutely loses it on him, yelling that Bayi didn't just beat him, he utterly humiliated him. From a distance, Leon had seen Bayi use the flash blink. He breaks it down for Hong. In that single, impossible split second, Bayi pinpointed his weakest spot and struck, leaving him completely defenseless. The dean is ticked off because even with all his experience, he can't pull off the flash skill that flawlessly. The dean basically compares the fight to a pro gamer just toying with a total noob, making it crystal clear to his nephew that Bayi is not some random scrub. Meanwhile, Bayi is hauling ass, his mind racing about how critical it is that he gets home now. He makes it to the apartment building in record time, the memory of how this all went down in his past life burning in his mind. He's ready to change fate, even if it costs him everything. Bayi bursts into the house to find his dad watching TV and his mom doing the dishes. He storms in looking absolutely furious, catching his dad completely off guard, who's just surprised he's home so early. Bayi straight up ghosts his old man and locks eyes with his mom, tears welling up. He chokes out how relieved he is that she's okay. His mom, who can't speak, signs to him that she whipped up his favorite hot and sour noodles. But Bayi's like, nah, not feeling the noodles today. He hits her with a craving for some pickled fish instead. Mom tries to put up a fight, but eventually caves to her son's legendary stubbornness. She agrees to go get the fish, and Bayi offers to tag along, but his dad swoops in to shut that down, barking that his mom can handle it. Then he gets all bent out of shape, wondering why Bayi didn't even say hi. He gets up, grabs his booze, and grills Bayi about how the awakening went down, practically drooling to find out what epic power his son unlocked. Turns out, Bayi's old man, Ling Shang, is a pretty beefy electric-class warrior, which basically means he's a walking hazard. Bayi feeds his dad a line about not awakening because the whole thing dragged on forever. His dad immediately calls him out, demanding to know why he bailed early if he didn't even awaken. He starts ranting about how his buddy's kid got a trash-tier awakening class, and how he's banking on his own son to pull an abyss rank. Ling boasts that he himself is an abyss rank and has poured his blood, sweat, and tears into raising this kid. Totally ticked off and radiating some serious, I'm gonna wreck you energy, he demands to know what Bayi actually got. Swallowed by that menacing aura, Bayi doubles down on the lie, insisting he hasn't awakened yet. This just cranks his dad's rage meter to the max, and he smashes a bottle right over Bayi's dome. But when the truth comes out that Bayi is a measly dust rank, he absolutely loses it and starts screaming at him. See, Ling is the kind of guy with zero chill and major anger issues. In Bayi's first playthrough of life, his dad's cringe and fury over the dust rank disaster led to a full-on beatdown. He went after Bayi, but his mom jumped in to tank the damage, just like she always did. Back then, as a total weakling, Bayi could only watch as his dad wailed on his mom for a solid hour. The beatdown was so brutal that a nasty hit to the head left her mentally scrambled. All he could do was cry while his mom got wrecked in his past life. But now, on his second run, he's determined to change the script. Problem is, he's still not leveled up enough to throw hands with his old man, a C-rank Abyss-class warrior. He's gonna need a serious grinding montage to catch up. The cheap tricks he pulled on Hong? Yeah, those aren't gonna fly here. His dad is on a whole other tier, with actual combat EXP. Bayi grimly admits to himself that for now, he can't even scratch the guy. His old man yanks him by the hair, going on a full-blown rant about how he wishes Bayi was never spawned. Bayi knows instantly that he's stumbled into a high-level, unskippable cutscene. His father actually came home early just to camp his location and won't log off until he's had his fill of rage, and Bayi knows the man's damage per second is no joke. That's why he wanted his mom away from keyboard. Bayi gives himself a mental pat on the back for that tactical move. But just as he's celebrating his big brain play, a critical hit lands right on his dome. Things get worse when a new player joins the instance. Of course, it's his mother, the one support character he desperately tried to keep out of this disastrous boss raid. His mom is in total shock, watching Ling Shang wail on their son's head like he's trying to break open a stubborn loot box. Turns out, she just speed ran her errands to bring her hungry boy some grub, which explains her ridiculously fast respawn time. A wave of terror hits Bayi as he wonders if this is just a server reset, forcing him to replay the same tragic event loop. And right on cue, Ling switches his aggro to the squishier party member. Cue the flashback sequence. We see Bayi chilling in a prison cell. In his previous playthrough of life, he became the first player ever to rank up from a measly green to the legendary platinum tier. So naturally, his cellmate is confused about why a top-tier player like him ended up on a server for characters about to be deleted. Bayi's only comment was that he deserved the permaban because he's the one who sent his own mother to the graveyard. He was sentenced to be wiped for rage-quitting on his father as revenge for what happened to his mom. Now, back in the present, it looks like the prequel is about to get a live-action remake. As Ling Shang continues his unhinged tantrum, Bayi's mom rushes over to check on her son's health bar. Bayi knows his base stats are way higher now. A normal person would have been one-shotted by his dad's pathetic attack. His mother tries to help him up, basically trying to tank the damage and shield him from his enraged father. Ling continues his villain monologue, whining about how hyped he was when she was pregnant, since none of his siblings could roll a male heir during character creation. He thought he was destined to carry the family guild to glory. Instead, he got this epic fail. His son, his supposed legendary drop, awakened with the worst class in the game, Dust Rank. Ling screams at his wife, reminding her Bayi can't even class change because his starting build is literal trash. And of course, he blames his wife's garbage genetic debuffs for the terrible RNG. Ling Shen loses all control and winds up to hit her, but Bayi decides that's not happening on his watch. He pops his flash blink skill, phases right past his mother, and perfectly parries his father's attack. Ling Shang goes flying backward as Bayi cracks a heroic smirk. His mom, though, looks terrified, knowing this just triggered the boss's second phase. Ling Shang staggers to his feet and starts the slow, arrogant power walk toward his son, oozing pure final boss energy, fully intending to turn him into a meat smoothie. Bayi, ever the strategist, preps his parry skill, but whoops, seems like dad's got zero ping. The punch blasts right through his sword and smacks him square in the kisser. Bayi's spitting out a bit of that life juice, getting a bitter taste of the massive stat difference between them. Before he can even process the "you died" screen, another fist is flying his way. He throws up a desperate block with his hands, but the splash damage still cracks a few ribs. Oof, that's gonna lower his max HP. Ling winds up for a finisher, ready to teach his boy some respect. How dare this little punk defy the final boss? Bayi sees the attack animation starting, but his cooldowns are shot. With zero options left, he just turtles up, covering his head. As the punch connects, Ling hisses that Bayi should have been deleted at character creation for rolling such a trash-tier class. And yet, Bayi is still on his feet. He's not about to let this be a repeat of the last playthrough, no way. The fact that Bayi hasn't been one-shotted sends Ling Shang into a full-blown rage. He starts laying on the verbal taunts, spitting venom about how awakening doesn't suddenly make him hot stuff. That's it. Ling's going full WWE, grabbing a chair to use as an improvised weapon. Bayi's mom clings to him, both bracing for the steel chair special. But right then, a booming voice from outside yells for them to open up, and it's not the pizza guy. Ling Shen is totally bummed, his beatdown got interrupted. Meanwhile, Bayi's mom is just holding her son, breathing a sigh of relief. But for Bayi, this is no surprise. It's all part of his master plan. Ling Shang puffs out his chest, trying to look all big and bad as he yanks the door open. But that tough guy act evaporates when he sees who's on the other side. Two seriously intimidating dudes are just staring him down, asking what took him so long. Turns out, these guys are investigators from the inspectorate. Meet Liang, the A-rank deputy captain rocking a red uniform, and his partner, Chen Jinwu, a C-rank in blue. Ling Shang is practically vibrating with shock, stammering as he asks what in the world they're doing at his place. Liang just whips out a photo of a wanted criminal, a guy named Snow, and casually asks Ling Shang if he's seen him around. Apparently, their office got an anonymous tip that Snow was hiding in the building, so now they're doing a full sweep, door to door. You can literally see the relief wash over Ling Shang's face, thinking he's off the hook. He even cracks a smile, telling them, nope, he hasn't seen any wanted criminals. He even adds that Snow's face is plastered all over the news, so he'd definitely call it in if he spotted him. And that's when Liang's eyes land on Bayi, who looks like he just went 10 rounds with a truck, and asks Ling what happened there. Ling Shen, quick on his feet, spins a tale about how his clumsy son took a nasty tumble on a grocery run. He even gives Liang a buddy-buddy pat on the shoulder, telling him not to sweat the small stuff. But before he can even finish his sentence, Bayi cuts him off, telling the cops his old man is full of it. Bayi straight up declares that his father was the one throwing hands, which is exactly why he's a bloody mess. Rewind 18 minutes earlier, Bayi had used the building's payphone to dial the cops, reporting that he'd spotted Snow inside. He knew they wouldn't mess around with a Snow alert, but damn, he didn't think they'd show up that fast. He's just glad they did, 'cause it bought him the time he needed. Ling tries to play it off, brushing aside his son's accusations, even lying that he wouldn't have the heart to lay a hand on his own kid. But Bayi hits him right back with the cold, hard facts. He lays it all out for the officers. His dad cracked him over the head with a wine bottle and smashed his arm with a stool. Bayi keeps going, pointing out every single spot where his father landed a blow, basically telling the cops to go ahead and check his body for all the proof they need. Then he takes it to a whole new level, quoting their own rulebook back at them. He states that any awakener who can't control their temper and hurts people gets a mandatory 15-day stay in the Awakener Slammer. The cops are floored, totally impressed by how this kid knows the law better than they do. Ling Shan just glares at his son, his eyes filled with pure hatred. After the masterclass Bayi just delivered, Officer Liang has no choice but to slap the cuffs on Ling Shang. The officers grab him instantly, and when he makes a move for his son, they warn him to chill out or they'll get physical. Ling gets hauled out of the apartment, but not before screaming that he's going to end his son the second he gets out. Bayi just ignores the empty threats and shuts the door as they drag him off. The moment they're safe, Bayi's mom rushes over to pull him into a hug. Bayi breathes a sigh of relief, knowing he managed to protect his mother. But he's only got a 15-day head start to power up, and he swears to his mom that Ling will never lay a finger on her again. In all the chaos, just before his dad was taken away, Bayi managed to snatch the key to his safe. He knows his dad's got something major stashed in there. It's the secret to how he jumped from a lowly E rank all the way to a C rank. A little later, Bayi makes his way to the safe and pops it open. The prize inside was a secret Bayi only discovered in his past life, after his old man bit the dust. He opens it up and pulls out a wicked-looking blade. With this blade in hand, Bayi's new plan is to start conquering the demon caves. After all, diving into demon caves is the only way for him to level up his class, so he knows he's got no choice but to brave the labyrinth. There's just one little problem. The demon caves are technically managed by the gods, and you have to be a guild member to even get in. The only ones Bayi can access right now are the starter-level caves run by his school. Plus, he's got the ultimate cheat code, inside knowledge of a hidden demon cave from his past life. Time to get to work. Bayi makes a beeline for this secret dungeon, dead set on speed, running his way to the top. Meanwhile, over in the inspectorate's little timeout room, a couple of officers are jawing about the Snow sighting being a total nothing burger. They're not even mad, since chasing down snowy rumors is part of the gig. While they're shooting the breeze, Ling tries to grease their palms for an early checkout. The sheer audacity of this guy is just gross. I mean, the dude was a guild member. You'd think he'd have a clue. The officers basically tell him that adding bribery to the rap sheet is a fantastic way to make things way worse. They strongly suggest he enjoy his complimentary one-night stay before his transfer to the Awakener Slammer in the morning. Ling, of course, is aiming all of his impotent rage directly at his son. But since Bayi knows his old man is just on a 15-day vacation, he's busy prepping to hit the demon caves for some serious power leveling. For the uninitiated, demon caves are basically pocket dimensions that connect to their world through a door that just kinda appears. The second one of these things gets discovered, it's usually snapped up by a guild because they're crawling with demonic beasts and shiny ores. In other words, they're the premium grinding spots for awakeners. The catch? They're super dangerous, so you're supposed to bring a party. But the one Bayi's about to crash wasn't even found for another 5 years in his original timeline. Talk about exclusive early access. Your average F-rank cave requires a crew of at least 3 E-rank warriors. Step it up to an E-rank cave, and you'll need a 5-person team with 3 E ranks and 2 D ranks. Bayi's pretty confident this little side quest of his is just a measly F rank cave. Look, everyone knows demon caves are a one-way ticket to the afterlife, but Bayi's fresh out of better ideas. It's a solo run or bust. He's got a very personal, very angry motivation to get God tier strong, like yesterday. Armed with the shiny new toy he liberated from his father's safe, he waltzes right into the demon cave. The whole place is a winter wonderland, covered in ice and snow. Bayi immediately clocks it as the domain of a cloud-type magic beast. As he's taking a leisurely stroll through the frozen hellscape, he spots a big ol' ice bear taking a nap. Right in front of it is a charming collection of human skeletons. Looks like a few other explorers already left a bad review. While he's admiring the morbid lawn ornaments, some bloodthirsty forest wolf pops out of nowhere and tries to make him its chew toy. This E-rank doggo is technically stronger than Bayi at the moment. Bayi does a slick back hop to dodge the furry torpedo, but the thing comes right back for seconds. He manages to block its fangs with his blade, though. Bayi then decides it's his turn, flipping the script and one-shotting the wolf with a single, beautiful slash. He's only pulling this off thanks to the A-rank weapon he's rocking. We're talking about a piece of gear that's not even on the market, which is exactly why his old man kept it under wraps. With this bad boy, Bayi can totally close the ridiculous skill gap between him and these beasts. This baby is the legendary Hunwu blade, forged from Hunwu stone. It's so ridiculously sharp it treats iron like it's made of jello. But hey, even with a cheat code weapon like this, Bayi knows it'll still take at least 4 solid hits to drop these tanky monsters. He lets out a sigh, muttering about how much he misses being an all-powerful L-rank awakener. Turns out, he needs to farm 20 wolves to get a single skill upgrade. And since this whole place is a frozen wasteland, all that juicy experience is getting funneled right into his cloud element. It's going to take him 10 of these upgrades just to crawl out of E rank and hit D rank. And just then, Bayi finds himself the center of attention for a wolf pack drawn in by the smell of blood. What a perfect, if slightly suicidal, opportunity to grind some levels. The wolves try to swarm him, but he just falls back on his 2 favorite skills, bob and weave. Then hit him where it hurts. He dances around their attacks without a scratch, while chipping away at their health bars. He wipes out the first mob, bagging a cool 52 experience points for each kill. He also scored some wolf's fangs as a loot drop. After clearing the trash mobs, it's time for the main event, the Wolf King. Using his insane agility, he lands a flurry of strikes all over the boss, giving it 0 chance to even think about healing. The Wolf King bites the dust, and Bayi snags 56 points for the takedown. And for beating the area boss, he also scored a rare Snow Wolf diamond. Now that the first wave is cleared, Bayi's got enough EXP to finally hit D rank. He also gets 12 attribute points to dump wherever he pleases. He can't help but notice he's already gassed after taking out a measly 20 wolves. Man, these E-rank bodies are pathetically weak. He also realizes he desperately needs a dimensional backpack to haul all this sweet loot. Bayi has to admit, trying to solo a demonic cave is one heck of a grind. That Snow Wolf diamond he pocketed is a super durable crafting material for special weapons, and it costs a fortune on the open market. He knows the only way to get into the high-tier demonic caves is to get scouted by the Divine Corps. Since the Awakening Academies are basically farm leagues for the guilds, they're always sending reps to poach promising new talent. Getting into a major guild after graduation is the ultimate dream for every student. But if you get kicked off your team, your career is pretty much dead in the water, which is the exact tragedy that befell Bayi's father, leaving him permanently hard stuck at C rank. Taking a quick look around, Bayi figures he's about to burn through his stamina like a wildfire if he tries to solo this entire zoo. Dude's already running on fumes, and just when he thinks it can't get worse, another wolf pack crashes the party. Alright, time to pull a classic troll move from his playbook. He books it, and the puppy patrol follows right on his tail. He leads them on a merry chase into the woods, starts chopping down trees just to get some breathing room. All that ruckus is basically a dinner bell for the forest's other resident monster, the massive cloud python. So now, Bayi's got wolves and giant snakes to juggle. Fun times. To get himself out of this mess, Bayi puts his master plan into action. He sets off a massive explosion, hoping the Big Bang serves as a rude awakening for one very specific, very grumpy resident. And what do you know? It works like a charm. A seriously ticked-off frost bear stomps out of its den, ready to throw hands with anything that moves. The wolves and pythons learn the hard way that you don't mess with a bear's beauty sleep, as they all get absolutely wrecked. While the bear goes on a full-blown rampage, Bayi just hangs back and plays janitor, mopping up all those sweet, sweet experience points. He keeps this little scheme going, stacking up points and collecting python fangs and wolf fangs for his loot bag. Bayi is totally exploiting the beast's one major weakness. They've got all the aggression in the world, but zero brains to back it up. By pitting the big furry tank against everyone else, he's barely breaking a sweat. However, he still has to land the final blow to get the XP. After a few minutes of this chaos, Bayi is completely gassed. So, he decides it's time for phase 2 of his genius plan. As soon as the monsters are all lined up in a neat little row, he smashes the icy floor, sending them all on a one-way trip to the bottom. See, he'd been scoping out the area and noticed they were all fighting on a sketchy ice bridge hanging between two cliffs. This absolutely galaxy brain move wipes out nearly the entire mob in one fell swoop. Bayi is totally drained, but he still has to deal with the angry bear and the few leftover wolves. The system dings and unlocks a brand new title for him, 1 against 100. With this shiny new title, his stats get a sweet 10% boost whenever he's brawling with a crowd. But Bayi isn't sweating the frost bear just yet. He knows every dungeon has a final boss, and he's been waiting for the big cheese to make an appearance. He's caused more than enough chaos to get its attention, so he's wondering what's taking so long. Then, out of nowhere, a massive ice spell slams into the area. Before he can even blink, he and the poor saps in front of him get blasted. That's when Bayi realizes he totally miscalculated. The final boss wasn't sleeping. It was camping, waiting for the perfect moment when everyone was worn out and weak. Now Bayi and the rest of the monsters are all clumped together in one spot, making it a nightmare to even try and dodge. The spell hits him dead on, and his legs are already frozen solid. It finally clicks. The whole ice bridge was a setup, a classic boss-level prank. This boss basically set the whole stage just to waltz in and snag all the loot. That's when it hits Bayi. This final boss isn't just some dumb beast. It's got brains. And who's the mastermind? None other than the Kalen demon monkey. Naturally, he brought his whole crew of ape bodyguards. Meanwhile, Bayi is practically a human popsicle, covered head to toe in ice. He's completely stuck, and the demon monkey is just standing there, sporting the most punchable, evil smirk you've ever seen. Turns out, this cave was supposed to be a high-risk party quest for a whole squad of E-rank warriors. Whoops. Now completely frozen solid, Bayi's starting to worry about getting a terminal case of the shivers, also known as hypothermia, which, would be game over. The monkey boss, in a classic villain move, raises a hand and points right at Bayi. Then he gives his goon squad the signal to attack. Realizing he's totally cornered, Bayi decides it's time to pull out his trump card, the parry skill. But this thing is all about precise timing. You can't just spam it. So Bayi plays chicken, waiting until the very last second before bam, he pops both the parry and shatter skills at once. He shatters the ice prison and deflects the incoming beatdown. He's free for now, but he knows he's in deep trouble. That little stunt just cost him a massive chunk of his stamina bar. See, the shatter skill lets an awakened one basically rage quit any crowd control effects by burning through all their energy. The only catch? It guzzles stamina like there's no tomorrow. Bayi's betting the demon monkey's ultimate is on cooldown, so he's got a small window to take the big guy out before it's ready again. But the Monkey King just points again, sending in the ice bears and wolves to rough Bayi up. And since his nucleo element is basically playing rock, paper, scissors and losing against their cloud element, Bayi knows his odds are looking pretty grim. His stamina is in the red, and he's running on fumes. Meanwhile, the demon monkey is just chilling, sitting on an icy throne, ordering his lackeys around like a true final boss. Bayi's thinking, if one more of these fuzzy jerks shows up, I'm toast. While he's desperately trying to brainstorm an escape plan, one of the monkey minions comes at him. The ape tries to turn him into a pancake with a giant club, and all Bayi can do is barely block it. He gets shoved back hard, his knee grinding against the ice as he struggles to stay on his feet. That one hit pretty much drains the last of his strength, leaving him wide open and in a really bad spot. To make things worse, the ice bear's non-stop screaming is like a debuff, sapping even more of his will to fight. Some bear lobs a freaking ice boulder at him, which he somehow manages to slice in half, but the biting cold isn't doing him any favors, and his stamina gauge is blinking on empty. The second the demon monkey sees Bayi is gassed, he decides to be a total troll and unleashes another ultimate skill, the ice storm. Bayi's jaw hits the floor. He was totally banking on that ultimate having a way longer cooldown. What a cheat. His eyes practically bulged out of his head as he stared at the incoming attack. This triggered his past life PTSD, reminding him of all those near-death scrapes that gave him a sixth sense for spotting an escape route. Bayi did some quick, desperate mental math on his current, pathetic situation. He figured he had two glorious options. He could either stay and throw hands, but with his stamina bar blinking red and leaking HP like a busted faucet. That was a one-way ticket to the graveyard. The second option was way simpler: run for it. Bayi wasted zero time picking option 2 and yeeted himself right off the cliff. However, that jerk of a demon monkey just had to land a cheap shot, hitting him with an ice spell that snagged his feet. This masterfully turned his epic leap of faith into a clumsy, flailing plummet. With a brand new pair of ice anklets, Bayi slammed into the river below. While he was busy trying not to drown, his mother casually strolled into his room back home, assuming he was still sleeping in. Instead, she was shocked to find the room totally empty. Bayi had actually bounced the day before, a Friday, and it was already Saturday. His mom found a note from her son claiming he'd crashed at a friend's house, telling her not to worry. But that flimsy note just set off all her maternal alarms. She knew he would have told her in person, not just leave a note. She couldn't help but wonder what was going on, since he'd been acting super weird since yesterday. The poor woman was a nervous wreck, with a million worst-case scenarios running through her head. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, Bayi had somehow survived the fall. And believe it or not, taking a nosedive off a cliff was all part of his grand plan. He remembered that nearly 100 beasts took an icy plunge when he wrecked the ice bridge earlier. Thing is, he only got the kill notifications for 40 of them, which meant the others were still alive and kicking. Bayi coughed up half the river as he dragged his sorry butt out of the freezing water. He was alive, sure, but just barely. He was running on absolute fumes, suffering from major blood loss, and getting a nasty case of hypothermia. To put it mildly, he was in a completely weakened and pathetic state. His body was also seriously busted up from taking a fall from that high up. Without a doubt, Bayi knew he was on his last leg. As he lay there, he started thinking this might really be the end of the line. Before he could even finish that thought, he was surrounded by a welcoming committee of ice bears, ready to put him on ice for good. As they lumbered closer, Bayi's life began to flash before his eyes. He remembered his time with the Divine Core, the good times with his teammates, and the warmth of his mother's care. He also remembered his father's treachery, and the gut-wrenching sting of the traitor's backstab. A voice in his head whispered, "Welp, this is the end." That's all it took for Bayi to ball up his fists and decide, nah, the sequel's happening. He somehow gets back on his feet just as an ice bear is about to make him a snack. He just casually throws up a hand and stops its massive jaws from snapping shut. Bayi is absolutely determined that the cringe moments from his past life are not getting a repeat episode. He's already hit the game over screen once, losing absolutely everything. But this time, he's planning to flip the entire script. With a fresh dose of protagonist-level determination, Bayi just decks the ice bear and yeets it into the horizon. He lets out a frosty breath and snatches up his short sword again. His little "I'm not dead yet" stunt triggers something that could lead to a class advancement. Bayi is now standing there with a golden Super Saiyan aura swirling around his body, completely surrounded by a welcoming committee of monsters. His whole genius plan to solo a dungeon was basically to give himself PTSD just to feel that old desperation again. He was hoping this "oh crap I'm gonna die" feeling would trigger an adrenaline rush and force a class advancement, and even though he nearly became a human popsicle, he didn't quite check all the boxes. However, instead of a class advancement, the system just handed him a shiny new ultimate skill. A consolation prize, I guess? Nucleo Holy Swordsman, a skill so OP it's way ahead of the current meta. So while he didn't get his new class, this little toy is going to be incredibly useful. With this skill and the leftover adrenaline, Bayi is practically buzzing with energy. He points his sword at the mob of beasts, letting them know it's time for a mass extinction event. One monster charges, and the rest of the herd follows. Bayi is completely unfazed and just preps his short sword. As they close in, he unleashes a swirling Beyblade of death called Sanctuary that blitzes through all the surrounding beasts in one glorious slash. He's dicing them up as system notifications start popping off like a casino jackpot, telling him he has obliterated a bunch of ice bears and forest wolves, and showing all that sweet, sweet experience pouring in. After clearing out the trash mobs, he starts collecting loot drops like Icefield Beast Hide, a Proud Barebone, and a Blood Tooth. Plus, the Sanctuary skill totally clears his fatigue and refills his stamina bar. And on top of all that, Bayi gets another upgrade and snags the Icefield Wanderer title. This little perk provides resistance to cloud element creatures, plus a 100-point damage reduction, which is exactly what he needed. Bayi just glares up at the top of the cliff, vowing to delete the rest of these pests, and that includes their big boss. With the absolute flood of experience points, he levels up to 9 of the E-class. Bayi immediately flips on the Icefield Wanderer effect to stop freezing his buns off. That Sanctuary skill also has another trick up its sleeve, allowing him to store up power. It soaks up damage from attacks and then unloads it all on a whole mob of enemies. However, he can only pop this skill after getting seriously roughed up. He's just thankful it refilled his stamina bar. Bayi then snaps back to reality. He needs to wrap this up and get home before his mom starts to panic. He scrambles up the cliff and makes a beeline for the demon monkey boss's crib. The big ape is being protected by a bunch of ice beasts, but Bayi couldn't care less and just crashes the party. After steamrolling more of these critters, he's finally at the E-class level cap, level 10. Meanwhile, the clock has struck 11 p.m. and Bayi's mom is officially in full-blown worry mode. She's got dinner already, but now she's just left wondering where on earth her son could be, praying he's all right. Now, inside the boss room, Bayi effortlessly dispatches the ice bears on guard duty, leaving only the boss's personal goon squad, the super intimidating monkeys. The Monkey King looks totally unbothered and orders his cronies to take Bayi out. One monkey lunges at him, but our boy just casually blocks it and then slices the chump clean in half. The monkey boss sees this, and the oh crap look on his face is priceless. He furiously unleashes his ultimate, the Ice Storm Assault, but it does absolutely nothing to Bayi, who now has full immunity. Talk about an epic fail. Bayi zips straight toward the monkey boss. In a desperate move, the boss raises his staff, activating a spell that makes the jewel on it glow, sending the other monkeys into a rage-fueled hyper mode. But Bayi doesn't even see them as a threat. To him, they're just walking bags of EXP he needs to farm to hit D-class. Bayi carves through the juiced-up beasts like they're not even there, before unceremoniously relieving the monkey boss of one of its arms. The boss lets out a blood-curdling scream as the red stuff goes flying. Before it can even think about its next move, it looks up and meets Bayi's bone-chilling death stare. Bayi then rains down a flurry of cuts all over the boss's body, ending it for good. A notification pops up, letting Bayi know he's successfully clapped the D-class cloud element user, the so-called King of the Azure Forest, and has gained a whopping 1,000 experience points. He also officially promotes to D-class Nuclear Warrior. After the dust settles, he spots all the loot waiting to be picked up. Because of all the experience he farmed from a cloud element enemy, the system dings him with a message that a new profession is about to awaken. Bayi is stunned, having completely forgotten about this feature. A wicked red and blue aura starts erupting from his body. He awakens the cloud element mage profession and can now switch between classes anytime he wants. Bayi is absolutely stoked to awaken a red profession, even if it's just E-class, because unlike the standard Nucleo class with its measly 100% bonus, the red class is packing a whopping 200%. This new class is already as strong as his old one right out of the box, so Bayi casually scoops up the mage weapon, a stone of magic, and even finds a magic pouch that can hold a solid 20 items. And while he's busy looting everything that isn't nailed down, the leftover monsters can only stare in helpless confusion. Once he's done, Bayi glances up and notices a few stragglers survived. Well, since he just got a new profession, he figures it's the perfect opportunity for a little test drive and flips on his new mage mode. A menacing red glow erupts from his eyes as he gets ready to absolutely delete them from existence. It's now 5 a.m. The next morning, a lovely Sunday, and Bayi's mom has been up all night, anxiously waiting in the living room for him. The second Bayi opens the door, she practically leaps to her feet. Bayi strolls in with a cheeky grin, apologizing for making her worry as if he was just out for a walk. His mom doesn't say a word, she just rushes over and pulls him into a tight, tearful hug. Bayi's a bit stunned to realize she's been waiting up without even eating, but then he tells her he's got some seriously good news. Turns out, on his way out of the dungeon, Bayi stuffed that new magic pouch with all sorts of valuable goodies. And right after he leaves, he conveniently runs into an ore broker. The broker tries to lowball him with an offer of 800, but Bayi just counters with 8,000, which almost makes the guy's eyes pop out. Bayi doesn't even bother to haggle, he just starts packing his ore away like the deal's off. The broker panics and raises his offer to 2,000, but Bayi just shoots back with a demand for 5,000. The guy swears 3,000 is his final offer, but as he's saying it, Bayi starts his own countdown. and the price magically starts climbing towards 7,000. The broker keeps arguing, but seeing that Bayi is a master-level troll, he finally caves and agrees to the 7,000. Having dealt with these sharks in his past life, Bayi knows exactly how to play them. With the cash he made from schooling the broker, he immediately rents a new apartment for his mother, who had to endure one problem after another in his past life. But this time, Bayi's only goal is to make sure she's cared for and can finally enjoy her life. He signs the lease right in front of his mom, whose jaw drops at the ridiculously high price. By 8 p.m. that Sunday, they were all settled into the new place. Bayi is thrilled to see his mother smiling, a sight he hasn't seen in a very, very long time. But even with a fancy new apartment and a rank up from E to D class, he knows he can't relax for a second, not with his father lurking in the background. Bayi figures he should probably deal with his dad drama first before hunting down his main target. So, he slaps a magic stone onto his right arm, juicing up his area of effect spells by a whopping 50%. Meanwhile, across town, Hong is grinding like a madman to break his limits, speedrunning one labyrinth after another with 0 breaks. He's so deep in the zone that when his own sister begs him to take a breather, he just swats her hand away. Yeah, this dude will do whatever it takes to be number one. Elsewhere, some mysterious figure is scrolling through the list of newly awakened students and is completely underwhelmed by the lack of any real talent. The next morning, at a bright and early 7:30, Bayi's mom has a full breakfast spread laid out, which is when Bayi suddenly realizes he's completely overslept. He's like, "Why didn't you wake me up?" And she just calmly says he looked so peaceful she didn't have the heart to. She gives him a little pat on the head and tells him to slow down and eat. And just like that, with his mom's magic touch, Bayi actually calms down, realizing it's been forever since he slept this soundly or had a breakfast that wasn't a speed-eating contest. And right at that moment, his mom asks if there's anything he wants, like a new toy or a book, leaving Bayi completely blindsided by the sudden offer. She gently reminds him his birthday is coming up next Friday, June 5th, to be exact. And it suddenly hits Bayi that she's totally right. He'd completely forgotten about it, since it's been ages since he actually celebrated. After his mom passed away in his previous life, nobody ever made a big deal out of his birthday, so the date just kind of faded from his memory. So, as he's munching on breakfast, Bayi is racking his brain trying to think of a single thing he wants. But he comes up blank, because the one thing he truly wanted, he already has back. His next big mission, the one that matters most, is to serve some cold, hard justice to the traitor who got him and his whole squad wiped out. When Bayi finally rolls up to school, he finds out they're gearing up for the big combat simulation. The teacher is up front, giving the whole class of fresh-faced awakeners the lowdown. He explains that the whole academy is basically under the thumb of the Divine Guild, and yeah, they'll be watching every single move. This combat simulation, it's their one big shot to impress the guild's top brass. He drops the bomb that this is basically their graduation exam, and it's going to be broadcast live. Whoever comes out on top gets a golden ticket to a special training camp with the high school division. This camp is a super exclusive, once-a-year event, and it's the fastest way to get noticed by the Divine Guild. Normally, the school gets all the top-tier students from both middle and high school and ships them off together to the Shanghai Nation, which is where the Divine Guild's main headquarters is located. Bayi's mind drifted back to the Shanghai Nation, the place he met his master, and the very same place that spawned that traitor. Funny thing is, that snake never even met the master, having slithered into the Divine Core long after he was gone. Bayi knew he had to absolutely crush this assessment to get into the training camp. That was his best shot at finally hunting down that backstabber. The simulation battle was set for this Friday, just 4 days away, and while some guys were buzzing with excitement, others, like poor Four Eyes, were practically sweating bullets about it being in a real-deal labyrinth. The instructor then jerked a thumb toward the training room for their first session. All right, maggots. Physical conditioning in the gravity room. Everyone starts with 10 sets of shuttle runs, now. But then, to everyone's surprise, Bayi just casually strolled right up to the teacher and said he wouldn't be using the recommended training room, which made the entire class and the teacher do a collective spit take. The teacher scoffed, telling Bayi not to get a big head just because he managed to beat Hong. He clearly thought the kid was just trying to weasel his way out of training, but Bayi just shook his head and clarified that he was looking for more specialized training. The instructor's brow furrowed. "Are you implying there's a problem with my methods, kid?" Bayi calmly explained that, sure, Physical conditioning is vital for most awakeners, so the gravity room itself isn't a bad call. However, he continued, these shuttle runs are really only optimal for classes like assassins and warriors. You know, the ones who rely on pure speed and coordination. But that's not what everyone here needs. He then told the teacher that classes like mages and chanters would be far better off training in the element room. He finished by saying everyone should be allowed to train based on their class's unique needs, since they all fight differently. The teacher just stared at him. So, you're basically trying to teach me how to do my job? Is that it? Qian, who had been listening in, was completely stunned. She realized Bayi's proposed training regimen was the exact same one a top-tier Divine Corps training officer, a Mr. Dong Yang, had talked about. But that was a brand new method. The only reason she knew was because her dad brought the tape home. Qian couldn't believe that Bayi had come up with the exact same advanced concept. Meanwhile, Specs was frantically telling Bayi to stop being so blunt with the instructor, who was known as the school's most hardcore trainer. But instead of blowing a gasket, the teacher just clapped Bayi on the shoulder and cracked a smile. Heh. That training method you mentioned. It's interesting. The teacher lays it out. With this many newbies, one-on-one coaching is basically a pipe dream for now. He hammers home the point that this combat sim isn't a game. It's how they grade everyone's performance. And if you screw this up, it could totally tank your entire future. Bayi flashes back to his past life. Even with a trash-tier family, his teachers were the real MVPs, supporting him and helping him not turn into a total screw-up. He looks the teacher dead in the eye and promises, I won't disappoint you. The teacher, still skeptical, asks Bayi what his grand training plan is for a nuclear warrior like him. Bayi, with a straight face, suggests cranking the elemental suppression in the training room all the way to max. This insane request leaves both the teacher and Specs completely floored. Bayi then spins a tale about how, even as a warrior, he wants to balance his build by facing his weakest stats head-on, all while sneakily hiding his real goal, grinding levels for his secret mage class. Right on cue, Qian shoots her hand up, declaring she's also totally down to practice elemental control. The teacher just sighs, defeated, and tells the two weirdos to go nuts. But he warns them to give it their all. Later, during the final assessment, Qian strolls up to Bayi, suggesting they team up for practice, but he shuts her down flat, saying he's using a private room. Total rejection. But Qian, ever the optimist, claims his cold shoulder has just lit a fire under her to crush it. Meanwhile, inside the elemental training room, Bayi's struggling a bit, being a total noob at this mage stuff, but he's dead set on mastering it before the deadline. He's also got to keep his class switching ability on the down low, because this whole school is basically a reality show for the gods, and they're watching every single move. The last thing he needs is to get flagged as a target by the gods this early in the game. Elsewhere, Qian is training with a measly 1% elemental suppression, completely convinced she's on Bayi's level. Back to Bayi, he's not about to start making friends with his classmates, since his goal is to protect them from what's coming. After the bell rings, Specs and his buddy manage to catch up to Bayi, yelling at him to wait up. These two were actually Bayi's best buds back in middle school, in his previous life. Since they were all low-level scrubs, they got bullied together constantly. Hanging out with his fellow weaklings was literally the only good thing about his middle school days. But now that he's on a revenge quest, Bayi figures he doesn't have time for friendship side quests. To ditch them, he hops on his bike and just pieces out, leaving them in the dust. They're just standing there, stunned that he bailed on them again. They were supposed to be the unbreakable trio, man. Specs couldn't help but notice Bayi was a completely different dude since his awakening, walking around like he owned the place. A few seconds after that, they finally catch up to a winded Bayi, who tells Specs he should probably get those lungs of his checked out sometime. Just when they thought the torture was over, Bayi absolutely crushes their spirits. He flat out tells them they're way too slow to hang. Then, he hops on his bike and peels out, leaving the two of them just standing there, completely stunned. But see, in his previous life, Specs got hit with a sudden lung disease diagnosis and didn't make it long after. Bayi's determined to keep Specs alive and kicking this time around, even if they never become buddies. On the flip side, Specs is convinced that underneath that new ice-cold exterior, the real Bayi is still in there somewhere. Over at the Shanghai Nation's recruit training grounds, a couple of guys are gossiping about some hotshot rookie who's been tearing it up. Turns out, this new guy has the same hair as the snake who sold out Bayi and his crew. Later that night, when Bayi got home, he warned his mom not to go out by herself and promised he'd always be home early with the groceries from now on. Bayi's on edge because he knows damn well the world outside isn't exactly safe for his mom, and he's got to find a better, more secure place for her to live. Back at the Awakeners prison, Ling Shang is already cutting a deal with one of the kitchen staff. By the next day, Tuesday, Bayi had already figured out the whole mage playbook, cracking the code that it's all about casting time and crunching the numbers on elemental power needed. So, while he's busy redlining the training room's equipment, his buddies are absolutely dying during shuttle runs. The grind doesn't stop, and after the next day's session, Specs and his friend invite Bayi out for dinner, and just as you'd expect, he shuts them down flat, saying he's got to get home early. However, he drops a little parting gift, a secret technique just for archers. The archer buddy is totally freaking out over the pro tip. Fast forward to Thursday, Specs finally drags himself to a clinic, where the doctor tells him he's incredibly lucky he showed up when he did. The doc breaks the news. There's a fast-growing parasitic tumor chilling in his lungs. He tells Specs he needs to schedule a surgery at a major hospital, like yesterday, to get that thing out. Specs thanks the doctor, promising he'll get right on making that appointment, but as he's walking out, it hits him. Bayi was the one who told him to get his lungs checked. He's left wondering how in the world Bayi could have possibly known, just adding another layer to the whole mystery he's become. Right on cue, his ears pick up some chumps gossiping about Hong. Apparently, Hong hit E-Class Level 4, and these guys are betting he'll ace the upcoming assessment. Turns out the dude's family is so loaded they own a private labyrinth. And get this, Hong's been using it for some hardcore grinding as part of their personal army. But then the conversation takes a sharp turn that makes Specs' ears perk right up. It seems Hong is plotting to give Bayi a little after-school tutoring for what went down last weekend. The gossips are saying Hong is absolutely fuming and plans on making sure B logs off for good. To make things spicier, Hong's even brought a weapon to up his damage output. The second Spec hears this, he realizes his buddy is in deep trouble and, without a second thought, kicks it into high gear. He figures saving Bayi is his top priority and starts tearing through the school hallway. All the while, he's just imagining what kind of pathetic tricks that clown Hong is gonna pull. Spec starts to worry that Hong might have called in his whole crew for a group beatdown, and he suddenly skids to a halt. The thought of how completely useless he'd be in that fight hits him, and for a second, he considers bailing. But then, a flashback hits. Bayi had his back when it counted. He sees Bayi as a brother from another mother, and is totally ready to throw down his own life to save him. With renewed purpose, Specs makes a beeline for the school armory and just smashes the lock to get inside, even though he's totally breaking the rules. But the memory of Bayi being his savior is playing on a loop in his head. He shoves the door open, fully prepared to face his final boss, just to save his friend. He scans the weapon rack, his eyes landing on a ridiculously huge axe, and just as he grabs it, bam! He hears Qian's voice pipe up from behind, asking why in the world he's committing a little B and E in the armory. Specs tries to play it cool and stay silent, but Qian keeps pushing, pointing out he looks like he's in a massive hurry. Finally, Specs just snaps and screams at Qian that he's got to go save Bayi's life. Meanwhile, Bayi, who's not an idiot, has already noticed he's got a tail. He casually leads them into an alley before telling his stalker to show themselves, and who else but Hong steps out. Hong's trying to look all menacing with a sword in his hand, declaring he's here to settle the score. Bayi just turns around with this look of pure pity, asking Hong if he seriously thinks he has the stats to take him on. Hong, full of hot air, fires back that he's absolutely positive he can wipe the floor with Bayi. He shouts this while charging at Bayi, popping his skill called Accelerate like a total noob. Hong brags that he's been on a non-stop training montage ever since their last little encounter. On top of his little speed boost, Hong activates another skill, trying to pull a classic nothing personal, kid, by teleporting behind Bayi. Just as Hong's about to connect, Bayi casually zips out of the way. The moment an opening appears, he snatches Hong up and introduces his face to the pavement. Hong lets out a pathetic gasp. It finally dawns on him that Bayi's attack power is on a whole different freaking planet. He can't wrap his head around it, but Bayi just smirks. "You think you're the only one who's been grinding, bro?" For extra dramatic flair, Bayi whips out his dagger and slams it into the dirt, an inch from Hong's ear. The reality check finally hits. Bayi's stats completely and utterly dwarf his own. They might be the same age, but Hong gets it now. The dude looming over him is a final boss he can never hope to beat. Hong is absolutely floored that Bayi has been leveling up on the sly, too. He completely loses it, screaming, "What's your level?" He's in total denial. He's demanding to know Bayi's secret, whining that he grinded like a madman just to hit level 4. And it was a ton of work. He can't process how Bayi is still so much faster. Hearing Hong complain about his hard training just makes Baiyi's grin even wider. Bayi just casually asks, "So, ever died before?" With a blade at his neck, Hong just tells him to get it over with. Hong accuses Bayi of looking down on him, and Baiyi's just like, "Yeah, duh," but he assures the guy that he doesn't actually despise him. Asterisk that times much. Baiyi's actually kinda impressed Hong came alone instead of trying to jump him or calling his posse for a beatdown. Bayi gets it. This was just Hong trying to see how his new stats measured up. Hong goes full edgelord, screaming at Bayi to finish him now or face his wrath someday. He's all, "Stop acting like you can read my mind." Bayi pauses for a sec and goes, "You know what? I take it back. I think I do hate you now." Meanwhile, Specs and Chi have shown up, but they're just lurking in the bushes, watching the show. They're pretty shocked to see Bayi has the whole situation on lock without them lifting a finger. They spot Bayi just chilling on top of Hong like he's a piece of furniture, and Hong isn't even twitching. Then, Bayi leans in and tells Hong he's got a little proposition for him. He dangles a power-up in front of Hong, letting him know there's a way to get stronger, but it's gonna cost him a favor. Fast forward to the next day, Friday. It's time for the big assessment. The teacher announces to the assembled students that it's combat simulation time, explaining that even though he said simulation, they're about to dive into a very real labyrinth. Now, most of the dungeon's power has been nerfed, but it's not exactly a walk in the park. The teacher warns them to play it smart and not bite off more than they can chew, cause the place is crawling with nasty critters. To make sure you all don't become monster food, we've assigned some high schoolers to babysit you. These seniors aren't here to fight for you, but they're basically your panic button if things get hairy. You'll form squads of 4 to 5 people with a senior calling the shots. You get to pick your poison, E-class or F-class dungeons, but let's be real. The E-class dungeons are a whole different level of pain, and the teacher is practically begging you not to try one unless you've got the stats for it. He also casually drops that if you fail, you can kiss your academic credits goodbye, just to show you how much this matters. After laying down the law, the teacher tells them it's time to choose their destiny. He asks for a show of hands from anyone crazy enough to challenge an E-class dungeon. A grand total of 8 students, including Chi Yin and Hong, raise their hands for the E-class suicide mission. Specs is just baffled that some of his classmates are actually volunteering for that beatdown. Out of 180 students, the teacher announces that 8 have signed up for the express train to pain. He tells the rest of the class they'll be randomly tossed into the F-class kiddie pools. But then, Chi Yin notices that our boy Bayi hasn't lifted a finger. Just as she's wondering, Bayi strolls right up to the teacher and drops a nuke. He wants to challenge the school's D-class Spirit Jade dungeon. The entire room just short-circuited. The moment Bayi declared he was taking on the D-class dungeon, you could hear a pin drop in the dead silence that followed. His teacher just stared, his brain buffering from the sheer absurdity of the request. Among the sea of stunned faces, Hong Chen-sheng and the class president, Chi Yin, were looking at him like he'd just sprouted a second head. The teacher finally reboots and tells Bayi he's gotta be kidding, saying no one in their right mind jumps straight to a D-class dungeon and straight up denies his request. However, Bayi's death glare screamed that he was 100% serious. And just then, the dean of the junior high division, Hong Lang, decided to enter the arena. He breaks it down, explaining that D-class dungeons are ridiculously dangerous and are usually reserved for high schoolers who've already hit D-class or higher. Completely unfazed, Bayi clapped back, pointing out that the official rules state students can choose their own level. He then added, "This school's whole purpose is to scout exceptional talent for the Divine Guild, isn't it? And the main criteria for that talent are courage and power." Bayi shot back, asking if the dean was seriously going to deny him the chance to prove he had the goods. Pinned by Bayi's airtight logic, Dean Hong Lang finally cracked, but only a little. He immediately threw another wrench in the works. All dungeons require a team entry, period. Without missing a beat, Bayi replied that he could just do it solo. This totally set the dean off, who bellowed that solo runs are strictly forbidden by school rules to keep students from getting themselves wrecked. Just as the whole argument ground to a halt, Chi Yin's hand shot up as she confidently announced she'd also take on the D-class dungeon, her expression locked in determination. Dean Hong Lang, looking like he was about to have a heart attack, immediately questioned Chi Yin's decision. He practically begged, asking if she'd lost her mind and worrying about how he'd ever face her father if she got hurt. But Chi Yin stood her ground, unflinching. She explained that she was also aiming for the highest score possible and was dying to test her own limits. Flashing a confident wink, she turned to Bayi and offered to party up, only to be met with complete and utter shock. Bayi bluntly shut her down, stating he was planning to clear the dungeon all by himself. Before Chi Yin could even register being rejected for the second time, the teacher stepped in. He plopped a hand on each of their heads and announced that Bayi's refusal was officially invalid. With that, he forced them to form a team, causing the dean to let out a massive, frustrated sigh. He reluctantly agreed, muttering under his breath about how unbelievably arrogant the new batch of students was. The teacher then immediately pointed out yet another problem. Since their team only had 2 people attempting such a dangerous dungeon, it was a snowball's chance in hell that any upperclassman would volunteer to supervise them. Just when it seemed their challenge was doomed, a hand rocketed up from the group of seniors. A ridiculously charismatic young man stepped forward, flashing a dazzling smile. He declared that the budding flowers of the motherland always need someone to protect them. The teacher looked massively relieved, and told the volunteer that with him on the job, he could finally relax. Chi Yin, now standing next to Bayi, instantly recognized the senior who had just volunteered. She whispered to Bayi that his name was Zeeling and that he'd come this close to joining the elite ultimate school team. As Zeeling swaggered over to them with a cocky smirk plastered on his face, Bayi was just wondering who this clown was and what the heck that team was supposed to be. When Zeeling finally stood before him, Bayi simply stated, "Never heard of you." The comment seemed to entertain Zeeling, who thought to himself that Bayi was just some clueless pretty boy, just itching to flex on everyone, completely clueless about his own league. Alright, with the last squad locked in, the teacher got everyone's attention. He dropped the bomb that the teams were set, and the combat simulation was officially a go, summoning a massive, glowing red portal right in front of them. He then casually mentioned their dungeon dive would be live-streamed by pro-grade drones, catching every single glorious or embarrassing move. With one last pep talk, he basically told them to go nuts and see who could rack up the most points. As the other students hyped themselves up, Bayi was locked in, staring ahead with that main character energy. You see, the Awakened Academy was built right on top of a massive demon cave they'd already conquered. And over the years, this Big Daddy cave started spawning a bunch of smaller, low-level portals all over the school grounds for the junior high and high school kids to play in. These fresh new dungeons, with their power levels mostly between F and D class, were basically the perfect training grounds for the students. So as dudes like Specs and his buddy hopped into their portals, the combat simulation officially kicked off. Meanwhile, inside their portal, we find Bayi, Chi Yin, and their designated senior babysitter, a guy named Zeeling, with a little camera drone buzzing right behind them. Bayi was totally aware the whole show was being broadcast, and that every little thing he did was on camera. He knew he had to play it cool and keep his aces up his sleeve, especially when staring down unknown threats. Plus, with those gods watching his every move, his reason for picking this specific challenge was crystal clear. The Spirit Jade dungeon had something he absolutely had to get. The trio popped out into a gloomy forest, standing right on the edge of a cliff. Down by their feet lay the shredded remains of some thorny vine, still pulsing with a faint green energy, proof of their very first, albeit tiny, victory. And that's when Zeeling strutted confidently right between Bayi and Chi Yin. He puffed out his chest and told the 2 rookies not to worry, cause their big bro was here to protect them. He even started bragging about how he'd cleared unsealed D-class dungeons with other top-tier Awakened. As they ventured deeper into the woods, Chi Yin asked Zeeling just how tough the monsters in a D-class dungeon really were. He explained that their levels usually range anywhere from E5 to D5. But, he pointed out, since these were school-owned dungeons, all the really nasty beasts were sealed away, so the chances of running into a true D-class monster were basically zero, and there definitely wouldn't be a boss. Then, with a smug grin, he added that they shouldn't look down on the high-level E-class mobs because their attack power and speed could still pack a serious punch. He laid it on thick, reminding them that as newbies, they were basically just cannon fodder, and Qian totally bought it, nodding along. Zeeling then smoothly shifted his attention over to Chi Yin, promising he'd find some weak sauce monsters for them to grind points off of, swearing he wouldn't let a single hair on her head be harmed. But right in the middle of his big hero speech, he realized Bayi had already wandered way ahead of the group, with this weird green glow pulsing around him. Zeeling just stopped, completely baffled by what Bayi was doing. He shouted after him, warning Bayi not to get too cocky and aggro a monster they couldn't handle. Bayi just stopped in his tracks, glanced back, and flat out told Zeeling he was being way too loud, which completely shut the senior up. Rocking a smug grin and eyes that practically glowed with power, Bayi told Zelling to just hang back and watch the show, cause his help wasn't going to be necessary. All Zelling and Qi Yin could do was watch, dumbfounded, as Bayi just strolled on, taking point like he owned the place. The perspective then flipped to the live stream cam, zeroing in on our trio as the official broadcast for this year's combat simulation kicked off. Meanwhile, back at the academy, massive screens were plastered everywhere, so students and faculty could watch the combat sim streams live, broadcasting every team's progress or lack thereof inside the dungeons. The camera then cuts to a swanky private room, a plaque on the door reading, Ultimate School Team. Inside, some dude with green hair, the team's vice captain, was busy on a call. He was practically begging his captain to tune into the broadcast, saying things were getting wild this year. With a sly grin, he mentioned that some freshmen had the guts to pick a D-class dungeon right out of the gate. A woman's voice shot back, her face completely cloaked in shadows, asking what kind of class the kid had awakened. The vice captain chuckled, explaining that was the best part. The kid's a nuclear warrior, literally one of the trashiest classes in the game. Intrigued by this absolute madman's confidence, the mysterious captain declared she had to see for herself what kind of nerve this kid was packing. The feed then jumps over to show how the other student teams were faring. Inside a sealed-off F-class dungeon, a guy named Specs was totally freaking out, screaming for the monsters to back off while flailing a tambourine around. His team was busy fighting off a swarm of F-class flame bats and fierce bats, with his teammates holding the front line while he was supposed to be providing support from the rear. The senior supervising his team sighed, telling him to chill out already, and reminding him that his only job was to play buffs from the backline. But Specs was still scared out of his mind, freaking out over how terrifying even the wimpiest F-class monsters were. Meanwhile, things were getting way hairier over in a sealed E-class dungeon. Crews were getting swarmed by packs of fierce fangs, these wolf-looking freaks just crackling with elemental juice. Hongqin's team was getting absolutely wrecked, with a few of his squad mates already down for the count. Their healer was desperately patching someone up, asking if he was going to make it. Seeing his whole squad about to get wiped, a fired-up Hongqin roared that if they couldn't cut it, he'd solo the whole damn pack himself. You could tell his rivalry was kicking in, as he launched himself at a fierce fang, screaming that there was no way in hell he'd let Bayi outdo him. Just as he connected, a crimson status window popped up, flashing a skill that juiced up his strength, critical hit rate, and even gave him some lifesteal, basically redlining his stats. And we cut back to the sealed D-class dungeon, right after Bayi just casually dropped a nuke of an attack. A massive green slash of energy had just ripped through the air, and there he was, standing all chill, surrounded by what was left of a bunch of those gnarly beasts. System dings started popping off, confirming his kills, with each monster netting him a sweet 30 experience points. His teammates, Zelling and Qi Yin, were just staring from a safe distance, their jaws on the floor, while their supervisor was stuttering, trying to ask how the heck Bayi just pulled that off. But before he could even drop a one-liner, a new problem crawled into view. Two gigantic, multi-eyed spider freaks. Totally unfazed, Bayi just nonchalantly explained to Qi Yin that the monsters in here are sealed, so they're only running at half power, which is why they're basically a walk in the park. But Qi Yin, still starstruck as he swung that massive blade from her dad's safe, shot back that even at half strength, he just took on a whole mob by himself. She confessed she still had a long, long way to go to catch up to him. As he turned to face the next wave of nightmare fuel, Bayi told her it's a waste of time comparing herself to other people. His expression was dead serious, totally focused, as he advised her to just focus on her own grind. Qi Yin, totally charmed by Bayi's blunt force motivation, just beamed, clutching her spellbook and promising she'd give it her all. Zelling, on the other hand, was watching from the sidelines, looking like he'd just sucked on a lemon, absolutely steaming that this cocky rookie was hogging all the glory. He marched right up, trying to play the big shot senior by reminding Bayi that this was just a D-class dungeon and he shouldn't get a big head. And then he had the nerve to pat Bayi's hair like he was some kid. Xiling gave him a pat on the back, admitting his performance wasn't half bad for a total newbie, but quickly warned him that this dungeon had 3 whole caverns and wasn't going to be a walk in the park. He immediately tried to take charge, barking out tactical advice and ordering Qi Yin to handle the mobs on the right. Without even blinking, Bayi completely cut him off, casually announcing that he'd be taking the left side. This left Xiling flustered and looking like a total fool, completely ignored. The crew was now standing in a huge cavern, littered with the bodies of slain beasts, with the path ahead splitting into two tunnels. And at the very end of the chamber, a massive, glowing red magical seal was pulsing with ominous energy. As Bayi totally blanked him and spoke directly to Qi Yin, Xiling's frustration was practically boiling over. Bayi asked Qi Yin if she could solo the low-tier monsters on the right path. Pushed to the sidelines, all Xiling could do was seethe, thinking about how much nerve this rookie had to disrespect him like that. Bayi explained to Qi Yin that the whole point of the simulation was to test what they could do individually, and this was her big chance to prove her own strength. Then he hit her with a simple question. Don't you want to get a good score? That was all the fire Qi Yin needed. Her face set with determination as she declared that she understood and was ready to crush it. With the so-called plan settled, Bayi coolly walked down the left path all by himself. Meanwhile, Qi Yin and an absolutely fuming Xiling took the right path, watching Bai's back as he disappeared. Xiling's face twisted into a nasty snarl as he muttered a curse, deciding that if Bayi wouldn't learn respect the easy way, then he was going to get taught a lesson the hard way. In a brilliant flash of golden light, he summoned a glowing bow, and it was crystal clear his intentions had turned ugly. Back in the viewing room, the teachers and students were absolutely losing their minds watching Bayi's live feed. The clips coming in from the drone footage showed him single-handedly mowing down waves of E-class monsters like it was nothing. One student yelled out that it was unbelievable how many beasts Bayi had already wiped out. A teacher, completely stunned, asked what his current level was even supposed to be. Another replied that the official report still had him listed as an Eon, though his real power was anyone's guess. The group started speculating that he had to be at least an E3, maybe even a high-ranking E4 by now. Meanwhile, Bayi was coming face to face with some giant, creepy spider monsters on his path. The instructor who supervised the awakening ceremony explained to his peers that Bayi's decision to send Qi Yin right wasn't just a random power move. He had actually been smart enough to observe the elemental weaknesses of the monsters. He sent the plant-powered Qi Yin to deal with the cosmic-type monsters, basically giving her a cheat code with that elemental advantage. The teacher couldn't help but praise Bayi's genius-level decisions and insane tactical awareness, especially with the pressure on. Thinking back to Bayi's promise not to let him down, the teacher couldn't help but crack a proud smile, realizing the kid actually had the skills to back up his big talk. He leaned in, totally hooked on the screen, wondering what other crazy plays his student was about to pull off. And just like that, the camera pans over to Bayi, confirming the teacher's analysis from the man himself. Turns out, he'd already clocked that the cosmic critters were pouring out of the right-hand cave. Since they were also on the weaker side, it was the perfect warm-up for Qi Yin, who had a massive type advantage against them. As she ventured down her assigned path, Qi Yin found herself staring down a monstrous beetle thing with glowing purple war paint. The beast didn't hesitate, charging at her like a freight train. Reacting in a flash, she slammed her hand on the ground and unleashed a spell, screaming, "Vine Wall." In an instant, thick, thorny vines burst from the ground, wrapping around the monster and holding it fast. But even with the spell hitting its mark, you could see the sheer effort on Qi Yin's face as she geared up for her next move, roaring for another wave of power. With another battle cry, Qi Yin commanded the thorny vines to constrict with all their might. They squeezed the life out of the massive beetle, cracking its shell, drawing blood, and slapping it with a deadly poison status effect. And with that, the creature collapsed, totally defeated. A system notification popped up, confirming her successful takedown of the E-class starbug and granting her a sweet 30 experience points. Qi Yin pumped her fist in a victory pose, her face beaming with pride as she shouted that she'd pulled it off. Over at the entrance to his own path, Bayi had been watching the whole show unfold. He noted that even mages, even at the lowly E-class rank, already have their basic class abilities. In Qi Yin's case, that was her power to conjure a poisonous wall of plants, a skill aptly named Vine Wall. Bayi was actually pretty impressed. For her first time ever in a dungeon, she was staying surprisingly chill while staring down monsters that were stronger than her. Plus, she had the tactical smarts to use her wall skill not just for defense, but to trap the beast and create a tight kill zone. He came to a simple conclusion. The girl was a natural when it came to fighting. Now that he was sure she could handle her own business, Bayi locked his eyes on the prize, a massive, glowing red seal pulsating at the far end of the cavern. Flames representing 5 different elements danced around its edges, and he bet his bottom dollar some nasty D-class monsters were chilling behind it. With Qi Yin busy playing whack-a-mole with the mobs on her path, he was free to focus on his own, much spicier objective. As he strolled up to the seal, Bayi started cooking up a strategy. He was totally sure he could snag a high score while keeping his true power level on the down low, even with those pesky drones live streaming his every flex to the world. Still, a guy had to be smart about it and plan his next move carefully, especially with a seal this beefy staring him down. Meanwhile, lurking back at the entrance to Qi Yin's lane, Zealing was absolutely seething. He couldn't believe the sheer audacity of these rookies completely ghosting their senior. He decided that if they were feeling so froggy, he'd give them a real challenge to jump at. His eyes then landed on the magical seal in the main cavern. In a flash, he popped up right behind Qi Yin, whipping out his golden bow. He didn't aim at a monster, though. Nope, he aimed right at the ground in front of her. With a grin that screamed, "I'm up to no good," he chirped. "Let's try this on for size," and unleashed a blinding arrow of light. The arrow slammed into the earth with the force of a small bomb, missing Qi Yin by a hair but blasting a gnarly dark pit in the floor. Qi Yin whipped around, totally confused by the sudden friendly fire. Zealing, putting on his best innocent face, casually asked why she dodged, claiming he was just trying to help her by adding a buff. But from the brand new pit, a menacing growl started to rumble, and the glowing silhouette of a massive creature began to crawl out. Before Qi Yin could even process what was happening, a ferocious two-headed lion exploded from the chasm, charging straight for her with terrifying speed. A system window popped up, helpfully identifying the new party crasher as a level 11, D-class twin-headed violent lion. The sudden appearance of such a powerful, unsealed monster left Qi Yin completely frozen in sheer terror. The second he sensed that massive surge of demonic energy, Bayi instantly spun around, his attention snapping over to the commotion on Qi Yin's side. The twin-headed lion, now fully emerged, let out a deafening roar as its entire body erupted in flames. Running purely on instinct, Qi Yin shoved her hands forward, desperately trying to pin the beast down with her thorny vines. However, the lion's inferno was way too powerful, easily torching the vines to ash in a heartbeat. With a clear path, the beast lunged, its massive jaws gaping wide, ready to turn her into a chew toy. Completely frozen in fear, Chiang was pretty sure his game was about to be over. From a cozy, safe distance, Xiling watched with a nasty grin, drawing his bow again like he was about to add a little more spice to the disaster. But just as the oversized kitty was about to make its move, Bayi slammed the button on his accelerate skill. A system notification popped up, confirming a temporary 50% boost to his speed. He blasted forward like a human bullet, intercepting the fiery beast in the middle of its lunge. That little stunt caught Xiling completely off guard. In less than a second, Bayi shoved Qi out of the line of fire, pushing his speed stat to the absolute max. He then popped the flash blink effect, which let him phase straight through the lion's attack and deliver a devastating bonk to its head. The bone-rattling strike sent the colossal creature stumbling backward as Bayi stuck the landing with perfect form, putting himself between the monster and a totally stunned Qi Yin. Now, on the defensive with his massive blade, Bayi was actually impressed by how insanely fast this D-class monster was. Realizing this was about to get good, Xiling watched the unfolding chaos with a twisted smile, thinking to himself that he knew this dungeon like the back of his hand. He was well aware that while most D-class monsters were sealed away, there was always one glitched-out twin-headed lion that would spawn as a party favor. He smugly thought to himself, absolutely convinced that no matter how full of themselves these rookies were, they didn't stand a snowball's chance in a volcano against a real D-class monster. The final, devious detail of his master plan surfaced in his thoughts. The lion had been secretly buffed by his own skills. A glowing red status window appeared over the enraged beast, confirming Xiling's little cheat. The lion was now in a light arrow state, which meant its gravity was nerfed, while its damage and speed were jacked up to ludicrous levels. In his head, Xiling was calling it the fastest twin-headed lion to ever live. And for good measure, another status window showed the lion was also berserk, giving it another 10% attack and a 50% speed boost. Facing this impossibly overpowered enemy, Bayi's expression got seriously grim. He clutched the dagger he'd snagged from his father's safe, wondering if he was about to have to drop the act and go all out just to survive. Turning to Qi, he told her to fall back to a safe spot, flat out saying this was a monster she couldn't even scratch. Qi could only watch, fuming at herself and cursing the fact she had hesitated just moments before. The enormous, flame-engulfed, twin-headed lion soared into the air, hurtling like a meteor straight for Bayi and Qi Yin. Just as Bayi steeled himself to face it alone, With a look that could kill, Qi Yin shot her hand out and bellowed the name of her spell, Vine Wall. And just like that, a gnarly mess of thorny vines erupted from the floor, snagging the lion right out of the air and hog-tying it in a thorny embrace. But she wasn't done yet. Qi Yin dumped even more juice into her spell, screaming for a second layer. With one last battle cry, she slammed it with a freaking triple-layered vine wall, completely gift-wrapping the fiery beast and putting its rampage on a timeout. Bayi just watched, a flicker of amusement in his eyes at her sudden power trip. She then turned to him and asked if she could get in on the action, swearing she wouldn't be dead weight. She declared that even if it was a D-class monster, she was ready to throw down right alongside him. Meanwhile, on the sidelines, Xiling was staring like she'd just seen a pig fly, wondering if the girl was completely nuts since she was almost lion chow a second ago. A tiny smirk played on Bayi's lips as he commented, "Huh, you got your nerve back quick," he admitted. "I honestly figured you'd still be frozen stiff from the whole near-death thing." Qi Yin shot back with a newfound fire in her eyes. "I've worked way too hard to get taken out in a place like this." And just like that, they stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to take on the trussed-up D-class monster together. The real party was just getting started. Shooting Bayi a grin full of confidence, Qi Yin said, "I'm putting all my faith in you. As long as you're here, I know I won't kick the bucket." Bayi, ever the party pooper, immediately brought her back down to earth, reminding her, "Hey now, that triple-layer trick just drained a huge chunk of your mana. You're not running on infinite energy." Qi Yin just replied, "I know." That simple exchange sent Bayi's mind reeling back to his past life. Even way back in middle school, she was already the main character. He remembered it clearly, a younger Qi Yin, standing in front of the whole class without a shred of doubt, announcing her dream was to join the legendary Divine Guild and become a divine priest. Bayi recalled she was always confident, annoyingly optimistic, and genuinely kind. She came from some big-shot family, but you'd never know it. She was friendly to everyone, and was a damn good class president. He'd lost touch with her somewhere down the line in his past life, just figuring she ended up living some normal, boring life. But in this timeline, he knew one thing for damn sure. This girl was someone he could bet on. And with a solid ally like her watching his back, Bayi was pretty sure he could cruise through this assessment without even breaking a sweat or revealing his real power level. Meanwhile, Xiling, our resident spectator, was having a good chuckle from the cheap seats. He practically snorted at their pathetic attempt at teamwork, a full-on sneer plastered on his face. What a couple of clowns, actually thinking they could take on this monster. That flimsy little weed wall? It wouldn't last more than a few seconds. Real fights aren't won with just guts, you morons. He fumed internally, absolutely certain their puny power levels were a complete joke. They stood zero chance against the souped-up D-class beast he'd sixed on them. A nasty little smirk crept onto his face. Yeah, Xiling figured he'd just chill for a bit. Let him flail around and eat dirt for a while. He'd make his grand entrance only when they were crying and begging him to save their sorry hides. That's when he'd drop a serious life lesson on them about knowing their place and respecting their betters. And right as that genius-level plan finished cooking in his brain, the two-headed lion let out a world-ending roar and with a massive power-up, absolutely shredded the vines like they were wet toilet paper. So, with one very ticked-off monster now off its leash, Bayi didn't even blink, already cooking up a new strat. He yelled to Qian that he'd pull aggro, calling out the beast as a nuclear type. He told her to get ready for the perfect opening to drop the hammer. Qi Yin got it instantly. With a war cry, they broke formation, expertly goading the flaming lion into a brainless, head-on charge. Bayi knew that since he was the one who'd landed the first good hit, the monster's hate-o-meter was cranked to max and pointed squarely at him. He expertly kited the furious beast straight towards a huge pool of water on the far side of the cave. Without a second thought, he took a swan dive, and the lion, too blinded by rage to think, cannonballed right in after him. Underwater, Bayi turned on the jets, zipping around the now clumsy, waterlogged kitty cat. He spotted the perfect opening while the lion was flailing about in the water, totally out of its element, and screamed up to Qi Yin, "Now's our shot." Reacting in a flash to his signal, Qi Yin unleashed her vine wall spell. The second the lion burst from the surface, a sopping wet mess of fur and fury. Its fiery aura fizzling, it got completely hogtied by the thorny vines. It roared in pure frustration, its power levels obviously taking a nosedive. With a look of deadly focus, Qi Yin commanded the vines to squeeze the life out of it. The plan went off without a single hitch. Textbook. The water had totally nerfed the lion's fire attacks and scrambled its nuclear core. A series of system pings confirmed it. Berserk state, failed. Nuclear state, failed. The beast was now poisoned and completely immobilized. Just then, Bayi smoothly surfaced, landing on the shore right next to her. He struck a pose with his huge blade, oozing pure confidence. He shouted that the overgrown kitty wasn't going anywhere, and it was time to wrap this test up and snag that top score. Meanwhile, from the bushes, Xiling was watching the whole show unfold, his face a picture of pure disbelief. He couldn't wrap his head around how a single layer of vines had trapped that monster lion, especially considering even he would have had a tough time with that beast. And he was the one who secretly juiced it up in the first place. All he could do was stare and mutter curses under his breath. Back in the viewing room, however, the teachers and staff were practically geeking out over the genius-level strategy. One of the instructors broke it down, explaining the beautiful simplicity of it all. Luring a nuclear-type lion into the water completely nerfed its main skills, while simultaneously giving a massive buff to Qian's flower-type abilities. Bai's teacher was beaming, praising his incredible reflexes and top-tier leadership. He pointed out how Bayi used basic elemental rock, paper, scissors, and solid teamwork to take down a monster way out of their league. The staff all agreed, the top spot was pretty much in the bag. All that was left was the epic finishing move. They were buzzing with excitement, saying once that footage hit the guild, Bayi had a serious shot at shattering the Academy's all-time high score. But right as they were all leaning in for the final, glorious strike, the live feed just went dark. Everyone watching was totally baffled, wondering who in the world cuts the stream at the best part. Back in the dungeon, the reason was painfully obvious. The recording drone was now a smoking, busted-up wreck on the floor, and standing right there was Xiling, a nasty smirk plastered on his face and a glowing energy bow in his hands. His master plan? No video evidence, which meant Bayi could kiss that record-breaking score goodbye. With that little problem taken care of, a system notification popped up, confirming their victory over the level 11 D-class beast and dropping a cool 100 experience points on them. Bayi immediately turned to compliment Qi Yin, telling her that win was all thanks to her amazing skills. She just brushed it off, saying she only pulled it off because she followed his lead, but Bayi was quick to set her straight. He explained it was her own hardcore training that built up enough elemental resistance to let her unleash a single skill with that much oomph. Qian just blinked at him, completely puzzled, and repeated, "Elemental resistance?" Like it was some alien language. And right on cue, a very salty-looking Xiling decided to step out from the shadows. He smugly told them that since the boss was toast, they could save the chit-chat for later. But Bayi and Qi Yin just shot him a cold, totally unimpressed stare. Xiling huffed that he was done with their supervisor's little games. Not missing a beat, Bayi hit back with an icy tone, asking if he had any clue what kind of insane danger he'd just put them in by juicing up a D-class monster on a bunch of rookies. Xiling, looking away like a coward, tried to weasel his way out of it, claiming he was aiming for Qi Yin, but she moved. Bayi instantly shut that nonsense down, saying his skills must be absolutely pathetic if he couldn't even hit a stationary target. Then, with a glare that could cut glass, Bayi grilled him, asking how he even dared to call himself an archer with aim that bad. Qi Yin, now just as ticked off, jumped into the roast, pointing out it was no surprise he couldn't even make the main school team. Totally triggered by their insults, Xiling whipped around, his energy bow flaring to life as he snarled, "What did you just say?" Without even blinking, Bayi stepped right in front of Qi Yin, ready to take whatever this clown threw at them. Completely thrown off by their lack of fear, Xiling's rage fizzled out into pure, salty resentment. He slowly dropped his hand, muttering some lame threat about how this wasn't over. Then he turned his back, tossed out a final, "You'll see!" and stormed off toward the dungeon exit like a toddler. Once the coast was clear, Bayi and Qi Yin strolled over to the busted drone Xiling had smashed. Qi Yin was still fuming, and went off about what a garbage personality their senior had. Then she saw Bayi checking out the broken tech and asked what he was up to. Bayi explained that their so-called supervisor wrecked the camera to tank their high score. Since nobody could see them now, Xiling had no choice but to dip out and grab a new one. Bayi then pointed out that every other team was way off in their own dungeons, which meant they had all the time in the world. A sly, calculating grin spread across his face. Bayi pointed out that Xiling had actually done them a huge favor. Now, he had the perfect cover to get into all the other shenanigans he had planned. Qi Yin just stared at him, totally baffled, asking what on earth he was talking about and what he was planning to pull. Bayi led a very confused Qi Yin back to the main cavern. stopping right in front of the massive, throbbing red seal that was keeping the dungeon's nastiest monsters locked up. Turning to her, he asked if she could pinky promise to keep what was about to go down, a total secret, adding with a smug grin that nobody would believe her anyway. A completely bewildered and alarmed Chi could only stammer out, asking what in the world he was plotting. The scene then zips back to that sketchy alleyway showdown between Bayi and Hongqian, and that's where Bayi's insane deal was revealed. In exchange for a power-up, Hong had to fork over the unsealing demon stone, the very one his uncle, the Dean, had back in the present. And now, Bayi was clutching that exact stone, a shimmering crystal etched with glowing runes. He then dropped the bombshell, his true, audacious goal. He was going to use the stone to completely bust open the Spirit Jade dungeon. Without a second thought, he slapped the crystal right onto the central altar, and a wicked, dark red energy immediately began to whip up around him. Chi went into full-on panic mode, screaming that he'd lost his mind and reminding him it was a D-class dungeon. If he actually shattered the seal, every single high-level monster would be unleashed all at once. As the sinister energy pulsed stronger, threatening to blow the seal to bits, Bayi just casually told her not to sweat it, explaining that the monster's power would still be nerfed a bit by the seal's leftover energy. Chi wasn't buying it for a second, firing back that even so, there was no way the two of them could handle that many D-class monsters. Who said anything about two people? Bayi stated, cool as a cucumber. Right as he said it, a simple red string bracelet on his wrist began to pulse with light, and a massive, fiery aura exploded around him. All Chi could do was gawk, sputtering in total disbelief as she witnessed the impossible. Bayi stood before her, no longer a warrior, but a full-blown mage, holding a glowing staff and crackling with magical energy. Chi's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of her head as she shrieked, "How in the world are you a mage?" As a powerful red aura swirled around him, Bayi, completely unfazed, just tells the shell-shocked Chi to hang back by the exit where it's safe. In a flash, the magical chains restraining the monsters exploded with a deafening crash, and 3 massive, flame-wreathed lions broke loose, charging straight for them. Absolutely terrified, Chi screamed for Bayi to watch out, throwing a hand out as if she could somehow shield him. But Bayi? He just stood his ground, perfectly calm, and faced the roaring beasts head-on. He raised his staff, summoning the power of the cloud element just as the lions let out a thunderous roar. A system notification pinged, confirming his class change, E-class Cloud Element Mage. With a look of pure, unadulterated confidence, he unleashes his spell, and a wicked wave of cryogenic energy erupts, swirling around the charging beasts as Chi-Yin stares, her jaw on the floor. It finally clicks, Bayi is rocking a red-tier profession, a rank so high it's practically a myth. She's over here thinking about how she nearly broke her back trying to handle just one of those lions. And yet, Bayi just casually crowd-controlled all 3 at once, flash freezing them into a single, massive, angry popsicle. As they both gaze at the new ice sculpture, Bayi explains that after being locked away for so long, it was a total no-brainer that they'd all come stampeding out together. With a dangerously sharp look, he adds that he's going to need a bigger playground for what he has in mind next. Qian gets the hint loud and clear, clenching her fists and giving a firm nod to Bayi's unspoken plan. She immediately books it to a safer distance, just as a fresh wave of fiery panther-like beasts explodes from the broken seal. Their paws hammer the ground like a death metal drum solo as they charge, their eyes glowing with murderous intent. Then comes the main event, a much larger and way more intimidating monster. A D-class fierce flame leopard appears, towering over Bayi like he's a free sample. Bayi squares up with the beast, not even batting an eye as he assesses the new mob. He notes that while they're technically D-class, their stats have been seriously nerfed by that long timeout in the seal. Playing the part of a mage, he preps his ice-forming skill. It's a slick technique that weaponizes the air itself, turning humidity into hard ice for some premium-grade enemy lockdown. He thinks to himself, alright, step 1, put all these clowns on ice. But as the massive shadow of a beast blots out the sky, Bayi figures it's time to switch up the playbook. A system notification pings in his vision, and he instantly swaps his profession back to nuclear warrior, gearing up for some hands-on negotiation. Now, decked out in his nuclear warrior spec, Bayi effortlessly sidesteps a vicious lunge from a D-class fire sword beast, a green aura flaring around him as he dodges the attack by a hair. A cocky smirk plays on his lips. He's practically laughing inside. Really? A sneak attack? On me? Cute. As another flaming cat pounces, Bayi pops a skill, vanishing in a streak of green energy just as the monster's claws tear through the spot where he just stood. In a brilliant, jaw-dropping display of pure flexing, he instantly reappears, having already hot-swapped back to his cloud element mage profession. Staff in hand, he's already winding up another spell before the beast even realizes it whiffed. The camera zooms in on one of the beasts, now completely trapped inside a prison of jagged, cracked ice. Watching from the sidelines, Qian's mind is completely blown, wondering how he's changing classes like he's flipping through a menu. And in that exact moment, she has an earth-shattering epiphany. Watching this beatdown, it finally clicks why he was so obsessed with that element room. The guy wasn't just training, he was beefing up his elemental resistance like a tank. She thinks about her own magic, realizing her old philosophy of just spam more spells was total amateur hour. But now, after witnessing Bayi's absolute masterclass on spellcasting, she gets it. Real strength isn't about raw power, it's about having that power on a leash. Qi Yin mulls over how elemental power is basically a wild animal, straight from nature and a total pain to tame. She now sees that only by getting complete control of that inner beast can you unlock the really slick and powerful techniques. She just stares, completely starstruck, as Bayi starts playing with the ice he created like it's putty in his hands. He's turned a beginner-level skill into a death machine, launching ice daggers at the trapped mobs. A light bulb goes off in Qi Yin's eyes, while Bayi just stands there looking utterly unimpressed. Yeah, that entire monster horde, they're now just frozen, bleeding decorations in his ice palace of pain. It's a straight-up flex of his insane skill. Qian's jaw is practically on the floor, absolutely floored that this dude has already maxed out his abilities so perfectly. Seeing Bayi's total domination, Qi Yin hangs her head and balls up her fist, a shadow crossing her face as she thinks, "Yep, he's left us all in the dust." But then, as she's stewing over his ridiculous power level, that look of despair melts into a blushing smile as she admits to herself, "Okay, but he's also incredibly cool." Right on cue, the whole cave starts shaking from some seriously heavy footsteps. And lumbering out from the depths is the dungeon's real times, final boss. The one and only Spirit Jade Demon Cave Lord. A freaking gigantic D-class fierce mammoth with glowing red eyes and an aura that just screams, "I'm evil." A status window pops up, helpfully noting that its stats are nerfed because it's still in a sealed state. Now, any other student would be soiling their pants, but Bayi's eyes just start glowing with excitement. He's not even a little bit phased. All he's thinking is, "Ah, there you are. Took you long enough." Basically admitting he was waiting for it the whole time. The mammoth roars and begins its charge, easily hopping over the icy graves of its fallen minions. Bayi's response? He's suddenly engulfed in a swirl of green energy as he swaps back to his nuclear warrior class. He declares in his head that the exact item drop he needs is on this big fella. He stands his ground, not moving an inch, squaring up for the main event as the oversized furball barrels right for him. In a ridiculous flash of speed and power, Bayi launches himself into the air, lining up a perfect, devastating strike on a weak spot right between the mammoth's eyes. That's a critical hit, and it's a gusher. Bayi immediately shoves his glowing green dagger deep into the mammoth's tough hide, twisting the blade to make sure it really stings. He sticks the landing like a pro while the colossal beast stumbles back, now leaking from several new orifices. With a completely unimpressed look and a bit of monster blood on his face, Bayi thinks to himself, "Seriously? This sealed level 15 mammoth is way weaker than that level 10 monkey boss." Screaming in agony, the wounded mammoth throws a tantrum, thrashing its giant head before charging Bayi in a blind rage. Its thunderous stomps crack the very ground beneath its feet. Bayi, looking bored, just zips around with unbelievable speed, unleashing a merciless combo and landing crit after crit on the beast's glowing weak points. Completely overwhelmed by the beatdown, the mammoth finally gives up, its massive body starting to topple. And just as victory is certain, a new power decides to awaken within Bayi. Talk about overkill. His eye starts blazing with a brilliant golden light as a ridiculously powerful, fiery aura erupts around him. Gripping his dagger, he gets ready to drop the hammer with one last, spectacular finisher. He flicks on his title, 1 against 100, and unleashes his ultimate skill, Sanctuary. A massive, screen-clearing wave of golden energy explodes out from him, ripping through the cavern and swallowing the mammoth and every other mob in its path. The colossal mammoth can only let out a final, terrified roar as the wave of pure ownage washes over it. This AoE attack is so broken that it doesn't just one-shot the final boss, but it also shatters the other beasts still frozen solid in Bayi's ice traps, instantly deleting them. A waterfall of system notifications starts spamming his vision, confirming he just wiped out multiple D-class monsters, some twin-headed lions, a few fierce flame leopards, and a couple of fire sword beasts. The system just keeps dumping hundreds of experience points on him for each kill. The final notification confirms the kill on the level 15 D-class fierce mammoth, netting him a juicy 1,000 experience points. He also scores some valuable materials, including fiery beast bones, and a high-grade drop called the Jade Tooth, used for forging E-class. Weight, nuclear weapons, and there he stands, in the middle of a now sparkling clean dungeon. Bayi has a crescent of pure golden energy just chilling in his hand, while his personal status screen pops up, flashing some serious experience gains across his flower, cloud, nuclear, and stellar elemental bars. With his objective officially checked off the list, he casually dismisses the golden energy with a flick of his wrist and turns to bounce. But as he's walking away, he glances down and spots a peculiar little item left behind, where the mammoth's body poofed out of existence, a pink yin-yang shaped stone. A system notification immediately identifies the loot as the responsive jade stone, one of a pair of jade stones that has a pretty neat special function. Staring at his prize, Bayi thinks to himself, "Finally, got my hands on it," revealing this little trinket was the real reason he unsealed the whole dungeon in the first place. After that absolute beatdown, Bayi is just drowning in rewards. A stream of system notifications confirms his insane power-up. His nuclear warrior class is now D-class level 13, and his cloud element mage class has shot up to D-class level 11. While scrolling through his new stats and holding the responsive jade stone, he smirks, satisfied that even his mage side hustle got a nice level boost. His 1 against 100 title has also evolved into the much cooler one-man army, which now grants a 20% boost to all stats and a 10% lifesteal effect when he's fighting solo. Meanwhile, Chi-Yin is walking silently through the cavern, which is now littered with the corpses of defeated monsters, still trying to process the ridiculous display of power she just witnessed. Bayi strolls up to her and calls out her name with a dead serious expression. He reminds her about her promise to keep what she saw on the down low. Completely blindsided, all Chi-Yin can say is, "Huh," right as a notification appears, showing that she got a piece of the action and leveled up too, hitting E-class level 7 in her flower element mage profession. Back at the academy, however, the massive energy surge from the broken seal has thrown the entire staff into a full-blown panic. The teachers, and yeah, that includes Bayi's homeroom teacher, are seen tearing down the halls. The teacher is shouting that they've never detected an energy spike this massive before. As they're all rushing like mad towards the dungeon entrance, they run smack into Xiling, who is just calmly taking a walk. The teacher immediately confronts him, demanding to know why in the world he isn't inside, protecting the junior students. Before Xiling can even answer, the teacher yells that the seal is broken and they've got no time for chit-chat. He and the rest of the faculty practically trample a shocked Xiling, scrambling to handle the so-called crisis. Once he's alone in the hall, Xiling's fake concern dissolves into a twisted, evil grin as he starts cackling, thinking to himself, "Well, look at that. Payback arrived way ahead of schedule." The teachers come crashing into the dungeon cavern, screaming Bayi and Qian's names at the top of their lungs. They freeze in their tracks, finding the two students standing there, completely safe and sound. The head teacher just sputters, totally confused, while Bayi casually greets him, asking what all the fuss is about. The baffled teacher glances past them at the main seal in the back, which is perfectly untouched. He mutters out loud, wondering if the monitoring system just had a major glitch. Breathing a sigh of relief that the kids are okay, the scene cuts to Friday, May 29th, just before school lets out. Xiling's in a meeting with the green-haired vice captain of the ultimate school team. Sporting a grin that's way too confident, Xiling asks if the materials he submitted are finally enough to lock down that last open spot on the team. But the vice captain just gives a little smile and an apology, letting Xiling know that their captain already picked someone for the job. Xiling is absolutely floored, then furious. He grabs the vice captain, demanding to know who got picked instead of him. He's screaming that the spot was meant for the most valuable person, and starts questioning if his own power and family connections weren't good enough. Right then, a woman's voice cuts in from the doorway, saying they've already found their MVP. It's a self-assured woman with brown hair, the team captain, who strolls in with a smirk. A status window pops up, identifying her as Ling Yua, a golden lightning assassin with a level that's off the charts. She remarks that this student, Bayi, is quite the interesting character, making it crystal clear that he's the one who caught her eye and snagged the position. The scene then jumps to Friday evening, May 29th, at a roadside noodle stand. Inspector Chen Jin-woo is sitting across from Bayi's old man, Bing Shang. Taking a drag from his cigarette, Chen Jin-woo warns Bing Shang to keep his nose clean, reminding him he pulled a lot of strings to get him out of the slammer early. As he slurps his noodles, Bing Shang casually says he gets it, but his face quickly twists into a look of pure resentment. The second the inspector's back is turned, Chen Jin-woo slides in like he's sharing state secrets. He whispers to Ling that there's a rumor on the street. Dean Honggang is touching down next Friday. Then he hits him with the classic, "You get what I'm saying?" But Ling just tells him to take a chill pill. Right on cue, Chen Jin-woo's phone starts buzzing. It's the big boss on the line. Looking seriously ticked off, Chen Jin-woo shoves his chair back and gets ready to bounce. He tells Ling Shang he's got to get back to the squad, and that Ling Shang should probably call it a night, too. Watching the inspector stomp off, Bing Shan is all like, "Oh yeah, totally, I'm heading home right away." But the moment he's alone, while still munching on his food, his face contorts into a look of absolute fury. His eyes start glowing a demonic red, the very thought of home fueling his insane rage. And a system notification pops up, hinting that a date with Destiny is scheduled way earlier than anyone thought. Then, we get a classic lore dump, explaining the legend of the responsive Jade Stone. Apparently, it's the tale of some big-shot master of a fierce mammoth, who got all smitten with a girl and crafted this magical teleporting Jade Stone just for her. But, plot twist, the dude fell for another chick and, like a total savage, ghosted the first girl and yeeted her precious Jade Stone into a dungeon. Meanwhile, back at his old dump of an apartment, he finds it completely empty, which only cranks his rage meter up to 11. He starts roaring, demanding to know where his wife and kid have scurried off to. In a fit of pure, unadulterated rage, he sends a poor, unsuspecting stool flying across the room. He's screaming every curse in the book, absolutely livid that they had the nerve to hide from him. His anger boils over as he swears that if he ever gets his hands on them, he's going to make sure they both take a permanent dirt nap. He emphasizes this point by introducing his fist to a mirror, shattering it instantly. On the flip side, in the cozy safety of their new place, Bayi presents his mom with that very same responsive Jade Stone he snagged from the dungeon. He hands her one half of the stone, beautifully set in a necklace. He tells her to keep it on at all times, then flashes a comforting smile, revealing he's got the matching piece. Bayi then breaks down the item's special ability. If she's ever in a tight spot, all she has to do is crush the stone, and he'll get the signal instantly, which means he can teleport directly to her side in a flash. He gently takes her hands, admitting he just couldn't relax knowing she was alone without this little insurance policy. As his mom clutches the necklace, Bayi gets a little down, thinking about how she's never had nice things like jewelry or any of the simple pleasures a woman deserves. But his mom, ever the worrier, turns her concern back to him, gently tries to tell him he shouldn't be wasting his weekend playing babysitter for her. She's basically shoving him out the door, telling him to go cause some trouble with kids his own age. Bayi just grins and tells her not to sweat it, claiming he's got zero need for that kind of thing. Yeah, that doesn't exactly calm her down. In fact, her mom's senses start tingling, and she insists that everyone needs a crew, a squad, asterisk someone times in their corner. Her little speech actually makes him freeze up and go dead silent. He turns away, mulling over her whole important people comment. His brain immediately boots up the memory files from his past life, and a flashback of his old Divine Core teammates, Ling, Yui, Han, Xiaoling, and Lucian, flickers through his mind like a sad movie montage. A sudden wave of the big sad hits him as he wonders if he'll ever get to see them again in this new playthrough. Later that night, at exactly 11:58 p.m., Bayi is posted up in front of a wild D-class demon cave. He figures that with the responsive Jade Stone now acting as his mom's personal bodyguard, he can finally stop being a helicopter son and focus on the grind. This is another one of those secret dungeons he knows about from his past life's cheat codes, a spot that only opens for a measly 1 hour each night between midnight and 1 a.m., leaving him basically no time to mess around. With his mom safe and sound, it's time to focus 100% on his own power leveling. Dagger out, he marches into the demonic portal like he owns the place. The second he's in, his mind gets hit with another PTSD flashback. He remembers that even after becoming a top-tier warrior, strong enough to solo the D-class Bloodflowers in this very cave, he was still completely useless when it came to saving his team. The agonizing memory of watching his buddies get wiped resurfaces. His mom's words about needing friends are ringing in his ears, but the memory of being stabbed in the back makes him scoff at the whole idea. He decides to channel all that emo energy into pure, unadulterated violence and launches himself into action, absolutely shredding one of the monstrous plant freaks. With a blur of ridiculously fast slices, he turns the blood flower into a salad. A system notification pops up, confirming the kill, dropping him 260 experience points and 3 blood flower petals. As he bags his loot, he's already muttering to himself about how friends are completely overrated, thinking they were nothing but a one-way ticket to Paintown. Bayi starts thinking about how pointless all his past grinding was. He realizes that it didn't matter how OP he got. If the gods felt like trolling, he and his team were getting deleted, no questions asked. He pours all that rage into the fight, sidestepping a massive attack from one of the hulking creatures with a burst of speed so insane it cracks the ground beneath him. He's seen so-called legends with all the power in the world get absolutely nothing in the end, not even a decent hole in the ground. That little memory fuels a perfectly aimed critical hit right into the monster's face. He sticks the landing like a pro, and a shiny pop-up confirms the kill and the sweet, sweet experience points, just reinforcing his life's motto, gotta get swole. He forces himself to go turbo, zipping through a whole forest of demonic tentacles. He grinds his teeth, dead set on becoming stronger than every last chump out there, even as a bunch of creatures decide he looks like a chew toy and start swarming him. The pain's just a minor inconvenience. His glare is still sharp enough to cut steel as he unleashes some serious payback, turning himself into a whirlwind of slashes that purees the monster mob around him. With kill confirm and EXP notifications flashing like a Vegas slot machine, he stands there, a bloody mess, with a monster's tentacle clenched between his teeth like a victory cigar, deciding that from now on, he's gotta fight like his life depends on it, while casually looting some corpse toxin from the bodies. His mind drifts to his current power level, or lack thereof. He's gotta admit, right now, he's pathetically weak. Heck, he probably couldn't even win a fight against his own old man, Bing. Then he starts thinking about the bigger fish he has to fry, like that backstabbing prodigy from his past life. Wiping a smear of blood from his lip, he has a grim little epiphany. He gets it now. There are no cheat codes or easy mode settings for him. He has to plant his feet and face down every single enemy, no skipping the boss fights. With this new fire in his belly, he stands tall before a seemingly infinite horde of monsters, totally ready to carve his way through the whole disgusting crowd. Facing this absolute mosh pit of demonic freaks, Bayi decides it's time to unleash the big guns. He activates his ultimate skill, Sanctuary, swinging his dagger with enough force to change the weather. A catastrophic wave of pure golden energy just explodes from his blade, completely swallowing the creatures as they scream their last. The flashy attack instantly deletes the entire swarm, and a tidal wave of notifications floods his vision, confirming all his kills, dumping hundreds of experience points on him for every single busted bloodflower and corpse orchid. After that massive light show, Bayi lands, his body still crackling with golden flames as he tries to catch his breath. Battered and blood-soaked but looking absolutely ferocious, he glances at the timer and realizes the demon cave entrance is gonna slam shut in just 20 minutes. His eyes scan the freshly cleared battlefield and lock right onto the dungeon's main event. He knows the clock's ticking, and he's gotta take down this boss before time's up. It's Saturday, May 30th, at a cool 12:39 a.m., and Bayi is standing face to face with the final boss of the dungeon. The thing's a gigantic, wood-like creature, just glowing with a seriously powerful green aura. He gets his weapon ready and pretty much tells the monster it's about to get wrecked. But to his complete surprise, the boss doesn't play along. Instead, it just zips away with unbelievable speed, disappearing in a flash of green light. This creature, a level 20 D-class lord named Yaya Warren, pops back into existence and unleashes a ferocious attack. It catches a stunned Bayi off guard, forcing him to dodge, but he recovers instantly, swinging back with a massive counterattack. He cleanly lops off one of the monster's arms. But, of course, that victory was ridiculously short-lived. The boss stays completely calm and starts gathering green energy in its one good hand. It then goes and activates a self-healing skill, and Bayi can only watch in absolute shock as the arm he just cut off completely grows back in seconds. He can't even believe these insane regeneration hacks. Before he can even process what just happened, Yaya Warren slams its fist into the ground, causing a ton of sharp, vine-like tendrils to just erupt from the earth. But even with the boss's crazy healing and the floor turning into a spike trap, Bayi turns to face the creature, looking totally unfazed. However, That cool expression gets shattered when the bloodflower monsters he already defeated start rising from the ground again, roaring back to life. He watches in pure disbelief as the resurrected monsters charge straight for him, wondering how in the world they're back on their feet. He knows for a fact a D-class lord shouldn't be able to just resurrect its minions, and this freaky development is putting him on high alert. While his attention is locked on the charging horde, a shadowy, whip-like attack lashes out from his blind spot. His eyes fly open in shock as the attack makes a direct hit, punching clean through his side in a spray of blood. The sheer force of the blow sends him stumbling backward, completely impaled by the dark tendril. As he struggles, the horrifying truth finally dawns on him. A second, nearly identical lord has just crashed the party. A system notification helpfully identifies this new monster as Chi Wuren, the twin brother of Yaren, another level 20 D-class lord. Bayi grinds his teeth in pain, finally realizing he's stuck fighting two bosses at once. The two twin lords now stand together, Yaren, the green one, already fully healed, and Chiwan, the purple one, who just sucker punched him. Pushed into an impossible corner, all bloodied and beat up, Bayi's face sets like stone, his eyes practically blazing with that classic, "I'm not done yet" protagonist energy. But time's up. Stuck in this secret dungeon at 12:59 a.m. on a Saturday, the demonic portal starts to flicker out of existence. And just a minute later, at 1 a.m. sharp, slam, the entrance to the demon cave seals itself, leaving him totally, utterly screwed. Fast forward to later that day, Saturday, May 30th, around 6 p.m., and a nasty storm is brewing outside. Meanwhile, in their brand new apartment, Bayi's mom is wearing a hole in the floor from pacing, staring out the window like a hawk. She's freaking out because her son has been ghosting her calls and texts all day. Her gut tells her he's off doing something stupid and dangerous again, so she makes up her mind to go drag him back herself. She marches out of the apartment and into the raging storm. Right into a little surprise someone had waiting for her. A nasty voice cuts through the rain, sneering about how well she and her son are doing for themselves. And the source of that lovely commentary? None other than Ling Shen, who dramatically drops a bunch of empty liquor bottles on the ground. He's just standing there, soaked to the bone, and practically vibrating with rage, whining about how they had the audacity to get a new place without his permission. With a perfectly timed flash of lightning, he glares up at their building with pure disgust, muttering, "Well, look at this nice little place." His face is a perfect picture of unhinged, crazy ex-fury, his eyes glowing with that special brand of psycho-level malice. At the same time, Bayi's mom walks right through the security gate and out into the open. And then, she just stops, dead in her tracks. A wave of pure dread hits her, and she instinctively grabs the glowing jade stone around her neck. Her eyes go wide with terror. She knows she's in deep, deep trouble. Back in the demon cave lockdown, Bayi is running on fumes but is somehow still swinging. He's panting, clutching that oversized sword of his, and thinking to himself, "Great, this is the fifth freaking wave. It doesn't matter how many times he slices and dices them, the stupid things just keep respawning." Another one of those resurrected bloodflowers lunges, and he carves right through it. But get this, the system notification pops up, and he's only getting a single, pathetic experience point per kill. It clicks pretty fast that farming these things is a total waste of time. No XP, no loot, nothing. Now that he's had his big brain moment, he figures he's got to find whatever's bringing these mobs back and smash it to pieces. His gaze locks onto the two glowing D-class bosses in the room, Yaoren and Chi Wuren. Pinpointing them as the source, it turns out the healing juice is flowing directly from the bosses themselves. With a new game plan, Bayi completely ghosts the resurrected horde. He becomes a total blur, zipping past the small fry and making a beeline for one of the twin lords, T. Wuren, to put an end to this party. With absolute laser focus, Bayi locks onto his target. He lunges forward, ramming his blade deep into T. Wuren's chassis, landing a series of heavy-duty stabs that make the monster crack and start to shatter. Except, psych. His attack is completely useless. He just watches as the boss's wounds seal up and its body regenerates in a brilliant flash of green light. And that's when it clicks. The other twin, Ya Wuren, is playing pocket healer, constantly patching up its brother. Bayi remembers the other one also pulled that instant regen trick, even after he, lopped its head clean off. He's thinking this ability is so broken, it's way beyond what even an S-class healer could dream of. This gets him wondering where the heck they're getting all this power. questioning if they're hooked up to some hidden battery pack. But before he can overthink it, one of the lords just blinks out of existence and reappears right beside him for a cheap shot. Using his pro-gamer instincts, Bayi nails a perfect block with his parry skill, taking 0 damage. He immediately claps back with a vicious counterattack, slashing upwards. As he lands the counter, Bayi notices something a little bit off. The boss has started to learn his moves, straight up copying his combat style. After his own counterattack, Bayi finds himself face to face with Warren, and to his surprise, the thing actually speaks. It says something like, "Hey, you're pretty tough." Then, its twin teleports back in. Both bosses brace for the next round, but Bai's whole expression just shifts. He's spotted something critical. His gaze shoots past the bosses as he thinks to himself, "Finally found you." A smug grin spreads across his face while his weapon begins to hum with power. He gets it now. In a plant-themed dungeon like this one, the massive trees have to be the power outlet. So, he completely ignores the boss and sprints toward one of the huge, glowing trees in the background. As he zooms past the baffled boss, he casually relieves it of its arm. He finally understands. The boss's ridiculous healing factor is only possible because it's leeching power from these trees. The boss looks down in total disbelief at its severed limb, which, for the very first time, isn't growing back, and lets out a shriek of pure disbelief. Bai's new strategy is crystal clear. He's got to pull the plug on these bosses by taking an axe to their power source, those enchanted trees. He unleashes a wicked slash that rips straight through a massive tree trunk. Bayi knows that once he cuts off their juice, he can finally put these guys on the permanent dirt nap list. With his new game plan locked in, Bayi blitzes right past the twin lords, Warren and Warren, making a beeline for those enchanted trees that act as their personal power plants. Before they can even react, a system notification dings, announcing Bayi has swapped to his cloud element mage profession. Raising his staff high, he starts chanting a seriously powerful ice spell, unleashing a massive wave of absolute zero energy that instantly flash freezes both D-class lords solid. With the bosses properly chilled out, Bayi lands and immediately swaps back to his nuclear warrior class. He smirks, confirming his big brain theory was correct. With the bosses crowd-controlled and their power source officially nerfed, their minions would lose their cheap healing and respawn abilities. And just as predicted, the resurrected blood flowers and corpse orchids begin to crumble to dust, dying for real this time. Now that the twin lords are nothing but giant ice cubes, Bayi drives his blade straight through the ice, shattering the frozen body of Warren into a million sparkling shards. A system notification pings, confirming he's successfully taken out the level 20 D-class lord and earned a sweet 2,500 experience points, plus a high-grade loot drop called White Spirit Grass, which can instantly restore 1/2 of his stamina and patch up most physical wounds. With one twin lord officially deleted, the other one, Warren, breaks free from its icy prison with a mighty roar. Bayi, despite his own injuries, stands his ground, a green aura flaring up around him. He points his dagger at the final boss, declaring, "It's just you and me now." The massive creature looks down, and surprisingly, its face is filled with sadness. Surrounded by flames, Warren makes a totally unexpected request, pleading for Bayi to end its life. Bayi is totally caught off guard, thinking he's never met a boss this emo before. He quickly realizes that with its brother gone, the creature just doesn't want to live alone. Respecting its final wish, Bayi decides to be a bro and grant the request. He lunges forward with blinding speed, and with a single, powerful strike, slices the D-class lord clean in half. As the monster fades away, a notification confirms he successfully finished off the level 20, Lord Warren, and gained another 2,500 experience points. A sweet 500 experience points. He also scores a high-grade material called a poison thorn, which is exactly what you need to forge a nasty S-class flower-type weapon. Clutching the purple loot, Bayi finally breathes a sigh of relief. All that hard work pays off as a final pop-up announces his nuclear warrior class just hit D-class level 15. But the party ain't over. After trashing the twin bosses, another alert confirms Bayi's Cloud Element Mage class has also leveled up to D-class level 13. With the main course served and dead, the red exit to the demon cave swings back open, giving him a way out. But before he can dip, a whole new status screen crashes the party, showing his flower element bar is completely topped off. This can only mean one thing: another awakening. Bayi looks absolutely gobsmacked. Realizing his flower element is already maxed out, He's suddenly wrapped in a vortex of glowing green energy and a flurry of colorful petals. He can't help but wonder what kind of busted profession he's about to unlock this time. He thinks back to his last awakening, which gave him that OP red profession, and a sly grin spreads across his face. He's practically vibrating with excitement for what's next. A new notification finally drops, revealing his new class. A level 1, E-class flower element summoner. And just like that, the hype train crashes and burns. His excitement evaporates when he realizes it's just a measly blue profession, a far cry from the god-tier class he was hoping for. After a beat, he just shakes his head and gets over it, figuring that summoner classes don't need crazy stats anyway, and starts wondering what its main gigs are. Right on cue, a skill description window appears, spilling all the tea on his new abilities. His active skill is Flower Spirit Contract, which lets him yoink the soul of a defeated flower-type demon and force it to be his new lackey. The passive skill, Flower Field, lets him see the ghostly souls of any flower-type demons that were recently unalived. Bayi's eyes light up as he scans the description. That part about making a contract with a demon's soul really gets the gears turning. A wicked idea starts to form. Bayi wonders if he can pull a fast one and form a contract with the two powerhouse bosses he just bodied. With his Flower Field passive now automatically online, he glances over and spots the glowing blue souls of the twin lords, Yawarin and Tivurin, just hovering over their corpses. Rocking a determined smirk, Bayi decides it's time to cash in. A notification flashes, confirming he's activating the Flower Spirit Contract skill. He thrusts his hand towards the two souls and, with a trollish grin, commands them, "Get over here." In a dazzling vortex of pure blue mana, the Twin Lord's souls get yanked over to him, snapping back into their beefy physical forms, now officially on the payroll as his brand new summons. Cut to a gloomy Saturday night, 6 p.m. Sharp. And would you look at that, it's Bing Shen, looking like a drowned rat and packing some serious cutlery, creeping around the apartment complex, with a look in his eyes that could curdle milk. Right when he's about to get down to some permanent redecorating. His phone buzzes, totally killing the vibe. Super annoyed, he picks up, only to hear the voice of none other than Inspector Chen Jin Wu. Turns out, the inspector is dangling one heck of an opportunity in his face. A dinner invite from the big man himself, Dean Hong Liang, which is basically a golden ticket back into the guild. The guy is absolutely ecstatic. Bing Shen swears to Chen he's gonna grab this chance by the horns and not screw it up. After hanging up with a seriously evil, over-the-top grin, he gloats that today turned out to be a great day after all. With his little revenge tour on hold, he figures he'll go check in on his wife instead, still radiating some seriously bad vibes as he strolls off. Meanwhile, having ditched the apartment to find her son, Bayi's mother is now just standing out in the middle of a downpour. She's clutching that reactive jade stone on her necklace as a wave of pure oh no hits her, when suddenly, a voice cuts through the rain. She spins around to see Bayi, holding an umbrella and a bag of groceries, like a true hero, asking her what in the world she's doing out in this weather. She jumps out of her skin at first, but you can see the relief wash over her face when she realizes he's okay. He gives her a soft smile and says they should head back home. A little later, safe and sound in their new place, Bayi's mom is checking out a gorgeous new bracelet he got for her. She's thinking about how her sweet, silly kid told her he stayed out late just to buy her a present. A sad, knowing look appears on her face as she thinks that just because she can't talk doesn't mean she's clueless about the crazy stuff he's getting into for her sake. Back in his room, Bayi is chilling on his bed, doing a classic main character power-up review. He's mulling over the 3 classes he's currently juggling: a green-tier nuclear warrior, a blue-tier flower element summoner, and a totally busted red-tier cloud element mage. A holographic status screen pops up, showing that his 2 main DPS classes, the mage and the warrior, have both hit D class, while his shiny new summoner class is still stuck in E class. But even with all these gains, he knows it's nowhere near enough to coast. His thoughts shifted to his father, Ling Sheng. He figured it had been 10 days since the old man was locked up, which meant there were only 5 days left on his sentence. However, knowing his dad's notoriously short fuse, Bayi suspected he might get sprung early for good behavior. That was a reunion he definitely needed to prepare for. The next day, on Sunday morning, Bayi's resolve became ironclad, a menacing red aura practically crackling around him. He decided that running from this particular problem wasn't an option. He had to confront his father head-on and end this drama for good before he could get back to the real business of getting stronger. Fired up by this new purpose, Bayi spent the entire day grinding like a man possessed. A glorious chain of notifications popped up, confirming he'd conquered 4 hidden demon caves, 3 E-class and 1 D-class, in ridiculously fast succession. By Sunday afternoon, he stood before the entrance of an even more dangerous D-class hidden demon cave with a big ol' question mark for a threat level. Knowing he couldn't afford a break and had to hit class like yesterday, he plunged inside without a moment's hesitation. By Sunday night, he emerged victorious. That red aura still blazing as a notification confirmed the D-class cave was officially cleared. He had leveled up. Again. He thought to himself that the next time he saw his father, the power dynamic would be a little different. As he stood there, he sensed something new and looked around, puzzled. Right on cue, a new notification materialized. It announced he had earned the title Lone Brave for successfully clearing 10 demon caves ranked at or above his own current level. This shiny new title granted him the Mark of the Brave and hinted at unlocking a Tower of the Brave in the future. Bayi could only stare at the screen, wondering what the heck this new feature was all about. On Monday morning, June 1st, over at the Awakened Academy, Teacher Huang stood before her class with some seriously exciting news. She informed her students that the final, juicy results of the combat simulation were in. She proudly declared that 2 of their very own, Bayi and Shi Yin, had snagged the first and second highest scores in the entire school. She then added that after a deep dive analysis of his performance, Bayi was awarded the highest score in the entire history of the academy. The news sent Shi Yin into a joyful blush, while Bayi maintained his signature, stone-cold serious face. Because of their absolutely stellar performance, Teacher Huang continued. They had both qualified for the ultra-prestigious training camp. But wait, there's more. She then dropped the bombshell of an even bigger prize, all thanks to Bayi absolutely shattering the high score. They were getting a super exclusive VIP meet and greet with the actual gods, and while everyone else was losing their minds, Bayi was just chilling. The rest of the class completely lost it. One student just started screaming, his eyes bugging out in disbelief. He was yelling about how meeting the gods was a legendary honor that even the most high-ranking priests might never get in their entire lives. Bayi, however, just saw this as a hilarious, unexpected plot twist. To him, this was a freebie, a fast pass to finally meet the squad of gods who stabbed him in the back, way sooner than he'd planned. His buddy from middle school, on the other hand, was having a full-blown emotional breakdown, grabbing his arm and putting on an award-worthy crying performance. He was begging Bayi not to forget the little people once he hit the big time. In total contrast, Specs just looked at him with a proud, totally genuine grin, basically saying, "Dude, I always knew you were a main character." Meanwhile, over in the dean's office, Honggang was having a little heart-to-heart with his nephew, Hongch. The dean flat-out asked Hongchen Shen why in the world he was ditching the training camp. He even threw in that it was a rare chance for some father-son bonding time, but Hongchen Shan just clenched his fist. You could practically see the edgy anime monologue happening in his head. He shot the idea down, declaring that since he only managed to snag 3rd place, he hadn't earned the right to even be there. He then went on a rant about how he was sick of everyone thinking he was just riding his dad's coattails and needed to prove he wasn't a total nepo baby. Dean Hong Liang looked surprisingly impressed by his nephew's sudden burst of pride. He commented that the kid had finally grown a spine and hoped Hong's old man would actually notice his character development. Seeing his opening, Hong Qian decided to go for broke and made a ridiculously bold request. He asked his uncle for the keys to the sealed for a very good reason, D-class demon cave in the school's backyard. The dean's eyebrow shot up, clearly shocked by the absolutely unhinged request. But with a look of pure, unadulterated determination, Hong Qian-sheng declared he was going to get OP all by himself. And now, let's cut to the principal's office for our next scene of family drama. We find Zeeling desperately pleading with his uncle, who just so happens to be the head honcho of the school. He was whining that he absolutely had to go on the training trip, pulling the "I'm the only heir" card like his life depended on it. The principal, a seriously stern-looking guy named Kui Yunqing, was having none of it. He coolly chewed Zeeling out for acting like a total moron when he should know the weight of his family's reputation. The principal's expression then went ice-cold as he leaned in to confront him. He asked why he thought it was a good idea to power up a monster to attack his own underclassmen during the simulation. Busted. Zeeling just stood there stammering, his brain completely short-circuiting as he failed to come up with a single lie. With a boom that rattled the windows, the principal slammed his hand down on the desk. He roared that the bigwigs upstairs weren't a bunch of clueless morons who'd fall for his half-baked scheme. He then dropped the bombshell that the only thing keeping Zilling from getting booted out of the academy was him. His aura was so intense, Zilling started vibrating like a cheap cell phone on silent. Overwhelmed, Zilling's legs gave out, and he crumpled to his knees, blubbering apologies like a busted faucet. With his eyes flaring like a final boss, the principal commanded the petrified little punk to get back on his feet. As the sniveling Zilling scrambled back up, the principal strolled around his desk to drop one last, juicy bit of info. He laid it out plain and simple. Zilling's boneheaded stunt had some serious, unforeseen blowback. Namely, it put a massive spotlight on some dude named Bayi, right in front of the top brass. The principal revealed that the powers that be now think Bayi is a super shady character. Kwon King kept laying into his nephew, spelling out how Bayi's power leveling was way too fast, like he was using a cheat code. This, naturally, set off all the alarm bells for the big shots. And because of that little mess, he revealed the gods themselves had summoned Bayi for a face-to-face. After letting that sink in, the principal actually caved and gave his nephew what he wanted. He told the little troll he could go on the training trip, but he'd better ditch the trashy attitude and learn to fly under the radar. Then came the final warning shot. If Zilling pulled one more stunt, Uncle Kwon King wouldn't be able to save his sorry hide. Zilling, of course, was ecstatic at the news, a massive grin splitting his face as he promised to be a good little boy. However, the second he was out the door, his face twisted into a nasty sneer as he balled his fists. He thought to himself that Bayi better watch his back, because payback was coming for him on that trip. Then his creepy thoughts drifted to Ling Yui, and his expression got even uglier. He swore he'd make her his, one way or another. Flash forward to that Monday afternoon, right before the final bell, when the classroom was absolutely electric with gossip. Bayi's buddy was clutching a freaking golden envelope, shouting about how it was an invite from the legendary school team. The letter was a formal, "You're in," addressed directly to Bayi, a bombshell that sent the entire class into a state of total shock. Everyone started freaking out, explaining this was the Academy's most OP team, a one-way ticket into the Divine Guild itself. Then another kid chimed in, saying it was founded by none other than the one and only golden rank assassin the school had managed to pump out in years. Minds were officially blown. Keep in mind, people would normally fight tooth and nail just for a shot to get in. Yet Bayi gets a personal invitation, and a high school team scouting a middle schooler is practically unheard of. Totally floored by his buddy's ridiculous success, Bayi's friend starts the waterworks all over again, wailing about how unbelievably amazing Bayi is. Amidst all the drama, Bayi coolly walks over and plucks the golden invitation from his sobbing friend. And then, to the absolute, jaw-dropping shock of everyone in the room, he strolls over to a nearby trash can and just casually dumps the invitation inside. His friend and the other students screamed in disbelief, asking if he was out of his mind for rejecting such a legendary offer. Completely unbothered by their collective meltdown, Bayi simply says he's out and dips from the classroom, leaving his classmates, including Specs, utterly stunned into silence. Later, his friend is seen crouched by the trash can, just staring at the trashed letter, mourning the golden opportunity that was literally thrown away. However, Specs saunters over with this all-knowing look on his face, asking if he seriously still doesn't get how Bayi operates. With a quiet confidence, Specs explains that the Bayi of today doesn't join other people's teams. He's the guy who makes the team. After ditching the classroom, Bayi makes a beeline for the school's secluded back mountain. He's thinking that since he has access to the D-class demon cave, the place will be a ghost town at night, which makes it the perfect private grinding spot. But it turns out Hong Qian is already there waiting, radiating a fiery red aura of pure determination. Bayi just gives him a look and says it's time to roll. As Bayi starts to warn Hong that a D-class dungeon might be a bit much for him, Hong angrily cuts him short, shouting at him to cut the crap and insisting he won't be dead weight. Bayi silently remembers their little deal. He'd promised to teach Hong how to fight and a fast track to getting stronger. In return, Hong had to score him access to the school's demon caves. He's honestly surprised that Hong actually managed to get him an all-access pass to every single D-class dungeon. The second they step inside the cave, the massive difference in their power levels is painfully obvious. Bayi is effortlessly carving up a huge dragon-like beast, while Hong gets immediately smacked to the ground by a monster's attack, letting out a few choice words in pure frustration. Looming over yet another vanquished green glowing beast, Bayi, with maximum troll energy, casually asks the flailing Hong if he needs a hand. But Hong, choking on his pride, just screams at him to get lost, insisting he's got this all by himself. And so, the brutal grind in the school's D-class demon cave rages on. Hong Chen Sheng, running on pure, unadulterated stubbornness, hurls himself into the fray against a horde of monsters. Bayi, on the other hand, is just chilling, reviewing his progress. He's thinking about that sweet Lone Brave title he snagged, and the mysterious Tower of the Brave it's supposed to unlock. Too bad he can't even get in until he hits class. Rocking a look of pure determination, Bayi takes a mental inventory. He's already cleared out most of the secret wild demon caves he remembers from his past life, which means the school's dungeons are his last resort for some quick and dirty EXP. The days blur into one long, non-stop battle montage. Come Tuesday, those fancy invitations to the ultimate school team are still chilling in the classroom trash can, a perfect symbol of Bayi's "I do what I want" attitude. Man, leveling up in D-class is a serious slog. It takes a ridiculous amount of experience points. By Wednesday afternoon, the grind is still grinding. Hong squares up with another roaring beastie, but just as it pounces, Bayi has to step in, saving his sorry hide with a massive kick that sends the monster flying. Absolutely livid, Hong screeches at Bayi, "I told you not to help." Bayi just deadpans. "You would have been monster chow if I hadn't." But hey, despite the drama, Bayi's feeling pretty good, figuring the EXP they've farmed should be just enough for what he has in mind. Fast forward to Thursday after school, and all that relentless grinding finally pays off. A triumphant Hong Chen Shen stumbles out of the demon cave, screaming his head off. He's ecstatic, yelling that he finally times hit D-class all by himself, shouting, "This is way more awesome than having my family's bodyguards carry me." A few seconds later, Bayi strolls out, looking like he just took a nap, as a system notification pops up to announce his own level up. His nuclear warrior class has officially dinged to class. With a look of pure resolve, Bayi knows he's ready for the next boss fight. A threatening image of his old man, Bing Shen, looms behind him as he thinks, "Yeah, my current power level should be enough to handle him now." A status window materializes, flashing his shiny new class stats, and confirming he's unlocked a brand new skill. Later that night, Bayi's back at his place when his mom starts teasing him, asking if he's been staying out late, romancing some cute girl. Bayi is a flustered mess, completely denying it and trying to pull the "I'm just a kid" card, but his mom just keeps on smiling, totally seeing through his act. She tells him it's completely normal to have a crush at his age, advising him to be a man and chase after the people he likes. She warns him not to drag his feet until the chance is gone for good, leaving him drowning in regret. Her words slam into Bayi like a truck. His eyes widen as her advice hits home, and he goes completely silent, his mind instantly locking onto one specific girl. As his mother's words echo in his head, his thoughts are dragged back to his past life and the girl who meant everything to him. An image of his teammate, Ling Yua, flashes through his mind, crystal clear. He remembers her cheekily asking for a hug, calling him captain with a playful grin. In true Bayi fashion, he just shoves her off, making her puff out her cheeks in annoyance. Then, the memory shifts to the aftermath of a hellish battle. The entire field was a graveyard of defeated monster corpses. A wiped-out but victorious Ling Yua was sprawled on the ground, happily yelling that they'd crushed it again. The Bayi, from before his regression, just as battle-worn, just grunted that it was time to move out. Still totally drained, Ling Yua playfully asked if he'd carry her. A flustered Bayi instantly shot her down, telling her to get one of the other teammates to do it. He left her pouting about what a big meanie he was, but that sweet memory is instantly shattered by the traumatic nightmare of their team's betrayal. The scene twists into something dark and grim. He's forced to watch Ling Yua's final moments again, seeing her light fade as she was overwhelmed. The image of his own face, twisted in pure, powerless rage, is burned into the back of his eyelids. Snapping back to the present, Bayi is left with the bitter taste of that agonizing past. He recalls that in his last life, he only met Ling Yua after his master had literally saved him from death row. They had just happened to meet in the capital city. In this new timeline, he has absolutely no idea where she could be. And a grim realization dawns on him. The chances of them meeting again are practically zero. He forces himself to accept the cold, hard truth of this second life. All he has left of her are these memories, and even if they somehow met, he knows things could never, ever be the same. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, the vice captain of the ultimate school team is reporting to his captain that Bayi still hasn't replied to their invite. He just assumes the guy blew them off and isn't interested. The scene then cuts to the captain, alone in her bedroom, holding the very same golden invitation that Bayi had thrown away like trash. His total lack of interest just makes her laugh. She's thinking, well, look who's getting interesting. Rocking a smirk that could kill, a status window pops up, identifying her as Ling Yue, the Golden Lightning Assassin and freakin' captain of the ultimate school team. She decides, forget the messenger, she's gonna meet him herself tomorrow and hand-deliver that invitation. Fast forward to Friday, which just so happens to be his birthday. Bayi's just chilling at his kitchen table, staring at a gift box his mom put in front of him. She's sitting right across from him, beaming, and tells him it's his birthday present. A little taken aback, Bayi eyes the gift for a second before popping it open. And inside, he finds a scarf. He's totally baffled, thinking, why on earth would she get me a scarf when summer's literally right around the corner? But tucked in with the scarf is a note with a super heartfelt message, wishing her dear son eternal happiness and telling him to go out and bravely live whatever life he chooses. And then, it hits him. His eyes go wide with a sudden realization. He looks up and asks his mom if she knew he was heading to the Shanghai Nation soon. She just gives him this gentle smile and confirms, yep, she knows. She explains that the temperature over there can be crazy different between day and night, so he needs to take care of himself. She also promises she'll take care of herself too. And man, Bayi is seriously moved. It dawns on him that his mom has known what he's been up to this whole time, just silently cheering him on from the sidelines. Then, his mom, with a huge smile, hands him a wad of cash, suggesting that since it's his birthday, he should go treat his best buds to a nice meal. Bayi lets out a sigh with a tiny smile, gently reminding her like it's the 100th time, Mom, I don't have any friends. So, later that day at school, guess who shows up? Bayi gets ambushed by his two so-called non-existent friends from middle school. The first guy shoves this super flashy figurine of a blue-haired water mage in his face, proudly declaring it's his favorite model, and asking, isn't it sick, dude? Bayi, looking completely unimpressed, just gives him a flat, simple thanks. Seeing this epic fail, Spec steps up, calling his buddy pathetic, and telling him to check out a real gift. He slaps a plainly wrapped rectangular object down on Bayi's desk, muttering that this thing was a pain to get. As Bayi tears off the wrapping, his eyes practically bug out of his head. The gift is the OG soundtrack for his favorite old-school movie, Fatal Magic. And this gift, it triggers a massive memory dump. From his past life, he and Specs used to sneak watch some totally forbidden prehistoric flicks back in Asht, and this one was their special secret. Specs leans in, like he's sharing state secrets, whispering for Bayi to stash it good before the teacher sniffs it out. Bayi, treating it like a national treasure, carefully slides the gift under his desk. He turns back to Specs, flashing a genuinely warm smile, and gives him a heartfelt thanks. Specs grins right back, totally vibing on their newly reforged bromance. Just as that wholesome friendship moment wraps up, Chi-Yin swoops in on Bayi at his desk, calling out his name with a smile so bright it could power a small city. She wishes him a happy birthday and slides a gift box his way. Meanwhile, his two buddies are gawking from the sidelines, their jaws hitting the floor as they process what's actually in that box. Because sitting inside, nestled on a plush little pillow, is a ridiculously huge, sparkling gemstone that a system window pings as a rare, unappraised A-rank mage weapon. Even Bayi is completely floored by this insanely over-the-top gift. He tries to push the box back to her, telling her there's no way he can accept something this crazy valuable. But Chi-Yin isn't having it, smiling as she points out that she wouldn't have even made it to the training trip without his help. Then, she just casually drops that it's not even that big of a deal for her family, because they've got tons of these, and she knows it'll be a massive upgrade for him. Bayi pauses for a beat, his hand just hovering over the box like he's defusing a bomb. After mulling it over, his face sets with determination. Yeah, she's got a point. He's got to get stronger, and turning down a free power-up is just plain stupid. It clicks that she must have spotted him fumbling around with some trash-tier weapon when he job-changed to mage in the simulation. And this crazy gift was her way of saying, dude, you need an upgrade. Man, he thinks, she's actually a super thoughtful person. Sitting there with his 3 birthday presents, Bayi is feeling seriously touched. He's just thinking, he never in a million years expected them to remember his birthday, much less hook him up with such awesome gifts. Suddenly, his whole lone wolf plan of ditching this place without getting attached seems kinda shaky. Meanwhile, in the background, His two buddies are whispering up a storm, trying to figure out when the heck Bayi and Chi Yin got so chummy. One of them even throws out the theory that maybe Bayi just isn't into girls. Their gossip session gets nuked when Qian walks up and asks what they're plotting about, making them both jump out of their skins. And while they're totally spooked, in his head, Bayi was totally planning to ghost these guys and not get involved. But then, their puppy dog earnestness somehow got to him, and he had a change of heart. He spun around to face the three of them, Cheen, Specs, and his other buddy, and casually asked if they wanted to grab dinner with him that night. Flashing a smile that looked almost genuine, he told them dinner was on him and asked if they were free. His friends absolutely lost their minds with joy, screaming yes to his invitation. Chi-Yin was so excited she was practically vibrating, while his two old middle school pals threw their hands in the air like they'd just won the championship, and one of them cheekily asked if he could pick the restaurant. But suddenly, their little party was crashed when someone spotted a posse from the high school division rolling up. Bayi's face went from 0 to 100 real quick as he wondered what the heck they wanted. Another student pointed out that the whole crew was making a beeline straight for their classroom, and Bayi watched them approach with a look that could cut glass. The classroom instantly started buzzing with hushed gossip. A lookout at the door hissed to everyone that the captain of the school's elite team had just arrived. Jaws dropped when the rumor spread that the captain herself was here to personally recruit Bayi for her squad. One of the guys whispered he'd heard the captain was a total knockout, though he'd never actually laid eyes on her. When he heard that, Bayi figured he might as well go and shut her down in person. He pushed back from his desk and strolled out of the classroom, leaving his crew behind. They just watched him go, all thinking the same thing. This was about to be a 5-star show. News of the impending showdown spread like a meme, and students from all over started packing the balconies for a front-row seat. And who was among the gawkers but our boy Zilling, chilling with his little posse? He was watching with a face all twisted up in rage, grinding his teeth while he muttered under his breath, "Why is everyone so obsessed with that annoying little punk Bayi?" He just kept glaring from the balcony, seething with jealousy and scowling. But the massive crowd didn't faze Bayi one bit. He just strutted down the hallway like he owned the place, ready to meet this captain. And then, all of a sudden, K-boom, a blinding flash of golden lightning just erupted in the hallway. The insane power surge sent a bunch of onlookers flying, all of them screaming in confusion about what just happened. But Bayi? He didn't even flinch. He just stood there, completely frozen. His eyes wide with pure, unadulterated shock. Golden lightning literally sizzles around his face as he glares at the source of all this power. His expression is a perfect mix of, "What the heck?" and, "Hold on, I know that energy signature." The entire hallway explodes into a chaotic storm of golden lightning, with Bayi just standing in the middle like the calm eye of a hurricane. A massive beam of pure electrical power zaps straight for his face, but the guy doesn't even flinch, his expression completely hidden in the shadows, totally unreadable. This is even while the sheer force of the blast sends the other students flying like bowling pins. With his insane level of experience, Bayi instantly sniffs this out as a cheap feint, just a distraction for the real attack. Reacting in less than a split second, he summons his own glowing green blade, ready to shut down whatever's coming next. But just as he braces himself, his danger sense goes into overdrive. The real threat isn't in front, it's coming from behind. With laser-like focus, he pinpoints the attack coming from his back left. He whips around in the absolute nick of time, blocking the lightning-fast strike with his own blade in a brilliant explosion of energy. Any onlookers still on their feet are completely blown away by the speed of it all, shouting in a mix of confusion and awe. The source of this whole ambush is revealed to be a young woman, her entire body radiating an insane golden aura, her face completely washed out by the light, but you can tell she's smiling. As the light fades, Bayi's cool guy facade completely shatters. His eyes are practically bugging out of his skull in disbelief. The attacker steps back, powering down her energy. It's Ling Yui, captain of the ultimate school team, holding a blade that's still crackling with leftover electricity. She shoots him a smug little smirk, clearly impressed, and compliments him on his sick reflexes, saying she knew she hadn't picked the wrong guy. Bayi can only stare back, completely stunned and utterly speechless. The person from his past life, the one he figured he would never, ever meet again, is standing right in front of him. Staring at Ling Yui, Bayi's mind flashes back to their previous life together. He remembers her cheerful, playful personality, always demanding hugs with a huge grin or teasingly asking for a piggyback ride after a tough fight. He also gets a painful gut punch of a memory, recalling how he being the emotionally constipated brick wall that he was, would always just push her away, leaving her to pout about what a big meanie he was. Back in the present, Ling Yui, still buzzing with lightning, casually explains that since he completely ghosted her team's invitations, so she decided to grace him with her presence in the flesh. Meanwhile, the other students, including Bayi's own crew, just stared, completely dumbfounded. Specs and his buddy were whispering nervously, already cringing at how epically awkward it was about to get when Bayi shot the famous captain down to her face. Pulling herself together, Lingu extended a hand for a super formal introduction, just starting to announce her name. But Bayi just strolled right past her outstretched hand. In one slick move, he yanked her into a solid, warm hug. The whole crowd just froze, dead silent. From the doorway, Qi Yin's jaw was on the floor. Up on the balcony, Xiling's face was practically twisting with pure rage. Held tight in Bayi's arms, Lingua looked up at him, her cool confidence totally replaced by shock and the faintest hint of a blush. Bayi just looked down at her, his expression surprisingly soft and sincere. He murmured a familiar name from their past, saying softly that it had been way too long, all while still holding Lingua. His two buddies from middle school were absolutely losing their minds, shouting about how he just hugged her in front of everybody and wondering if this was some kind of forbidden cross-class romance. Specs, of course, had to correct his friend, pointing out that Lingua wasn't actually older. She was in their year but jumped ahead to high school because she had an early awakening. In the background, Qi Yin was still staring, looking like her brain had just blue-screened. Finally regaining her composure, Lingua broke free from the hug. She vanished in a flash of lightning and instantly reappeared right next to Bayi, tapping his shoulder with a finger that was still crackling with electrical energy. With a cocky smirk back on her face, she asked if his little surprise hug meant he was accepting her team invitation. She immediately launched back into her sales pitch, explaining that the ultimate school team had unlimited funding and access to the absolute best resources. She added that they knew way faster methods to power level than just grinding school dungeons and suggested they could be fighting as partners. Bayi listened to her entire offer without saying a single word. Then, looking her dead in the eye, he gave her his answer. No hesitation. He told her straight up he wouldn't be joining the ultimate school team, adding that since he wasn't planning to stick around this school for long, joining some club would be completely pointless. After brutally shutting down her offer, Bayi held out his hand. He confidently told Ling Yu that while he was passing on her team, he was actually planning on founding his own guild pretty soon. He grabbed her hand in a firm shake, promising her with a determined grin that when that day finally comes, they would absolutely get their chance to fight side by side. But their little moment gets totally torpedoed by the vice captain, who sprints over demanding to know why Ling Yui is even here. He blurts out that some big shot named Hongchu is back, and the principal has ordered their team to roll out the welcome mat. As she pivots to bounce, Ling Yua tells Bayi they'll cross paths again on the training trip, shooting him one last look over her shoulder, promising they'd have a real chat then. But just before she walks off, she freezes and asks him why. He said, "It's been a long time when they've literally never met before." Bayi gives her absolutely nothing, just standing there like a stone wall with a poker face as she leaves. From a distance, Xiling is watching this entire drama unfold, his face twisted up in a silent, murderous rage. The second Ling Yua is gone, the students just erupt into a storm of shocked whispers. They are absolutely losing their minds that Bayi not only rejected a personal invitation from the captain herself, but then had the sheer audacity to try and poach her for his own future guild. They're all buzzing, like, how is that even possible? The guy's not an adult, and you need a mountain of cash to start a guild. While some chalk it up to him just running his mouth, others start remembering that rumor about him acing the academy's highest score. Then, one sharp student points out the real kicker. Ling Yua never actually shot down his ridiculously bold counteroffer. As he watches her walk away, Bayi mulls over the absolute insanity of what just happened, admitting he never in a million years imagined his reunion with Ling Yua would go down like this. He thinks back to the rules of the Divine Core. Members' personal details were top secret, and nobody ever went digging into each other's past lives. Because of that rule, he had no idea Ling Yua had even gone to the same middle school. It dawns on him that he almost completely fumbled his chance to meet her again in this new timeline. A small, honest-to-God smile finally breaks out on his face. He decides this completely bonkers and amazing reunion is one heck of a birthday surprise. Later that evening, Bayi makes good on his word and treats his crew Qi Yin, Specs, and his other pal from middle school to a massive barbecue feast. As they're stuffing their faces, Specs starts roasting the other friend for picking the restaurant, who fires back, saying, "Hey, Bayi wanted barbecue. I just pointed them to the best joint in town." But the banter quickly shifts to a more serious vibe. While flipping some meat on the grill, Specs asks Bayi straight up if he was serious about that whole starting his own guild thing. Chi Yin, looking concerned, follows up, pressing him about his comment that he wouldn't be at the school much longer, and asking what his actual plans for high school are. He casually takes a sip of his drink, looking completely unbothered, and just like that, Bayi dropped the bomb, confirming their wildest fears. He casually announced he was ditching them to stay in the Shanghai nation, and his friends absolutely lost their minds. They started screaming, like, "Are you seriously dropping out of high school to start your own guild?" But Bayi, cool as a cucumber, was like, "Nah, I'm not dropping out. I'm just gonna study over there." That's when it clicked, the horrifying, glorious truth. The dude was aiming for the legendary Divine Guild Academy in the Shanghai nation. Meanwhile, across town, a slick white sports car glided up to the ridiculously fancy Kaiban Hotel, where a welcoming party of guys in black suits stood at attention. And who's in the mix? None other than Inspector Li Yang. He practically folded in half, bowing as he opened the car door, revealing a total unit of a man with blonde hair, a wicked scar over one eye, and a fat cigar clamped in his teeth. This was the one and only Hong Bing. Yeah, asterisk the times, Guildmaster of the Divine Guild. With a single grunt that meant "get moving," he stormed into the hotel like he owned the place, his entourage scrambling to keep up. The moment Guildmaster Hong Bing and his crew stepped into the swanky ballroom, you could hear a pin drop. Inspector Liang, however, was looking on with an expression that screamed, "Oh crap." His eyes were glued to a sight that made absolutely no sense. Bing, B's old man, standing there with a smug as hell look, arms crossed, and buddying up with Inspector Chen Jin Wu. Liang's brain was doing backflips, trying to figure out what in the world was going on. He was thinking, how is that lunatic Bing out already? Wasn't he supposed to be cooling his heels in a cell for a 15-day stint for going berserk? Right on cue, Chen Jin Wu slithered over to Liang with a greasy grin plastered on his face. He explained that Bing just so happened to pay double the bail, and wouldn't you know it, the captain gave it the old rubber stamp. He basically told Liang to look the other way. You can imagine how well that went down. Liang's jaw was clenched so tight it could have cracked diamonds as he got right in Chen Jinwu's face. He demanded to know why. Even if the guy somehow got sprung, he was paraded into a VIP dinner with Guildmaster Hong Bing himself. Leaning in like a cartoon villain, Chen Jinwu reminded Liang that Bing got the boot from the guild for some minor incident a while back. He laid it all out. Ling Shang saw this as his golden ticket, a one-shot chance to crawl back into the guild's good graces. And with a look of pure, unadulterated smugness, Ling Shang whipped out a bag overflowing with shiny magic crystals, the super rare kind you only get from a demon cave. Chen Jinwu wrapped up his little story, stating that since the guy basically liquidated his entire family fortune to get back in, doing him this one tiny, totally illegal favor was no biggie. Yeah, that brilliant plan? Dead on arrival. Before Ling could even open his mouth, Guildmaster Hong Bing yeets the bag right out of his hands, sending the crystals into a sparkly explosion across the floor. He then goes full-on ballistic, demanding to know who let Ling Shang in. A terrified Ling Shang can only sputter like a broken engine as the massive guildmaster looms over him, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. Hong Bing bellows that the Divine Guild booked the entire venue and angrily questions why some stray mutt is sniffing around, trying to leak their secrets. The sheer intensity of his meltdown leaves both Chen Jin Wu and Liang looking like they've seen a ghost. Utterly humiliated, Ling Sheng hits the deck, frantically trying to scoop up the broken shinies while stammering out an apology. But his whining is cut short when Hong Bing lunges forward and snatches him up by the collar like a stray cat. With eyes glowing like demonic headlights, the guildmaster gets right up in Ling Shang's personal space, asking with total disgust what kind of stats or title gave him the audacity to attempt a bribe. Then, for the finishing move, he shoves Ling Shang away, telling him to grab his trash-tier loot and get lost. Guildmaster Hong Bing drops one last, soul-crushing command. From this moment on, that dog is permanently banned from the guild. Sprawled on the floor among the glittery debris of his failed bribe, Ling Sheng's face twists into the ultimate rage-quit expression. Blood drips from his clenched fist as he mutters some seriously spicy curses. Then, in a glorious burst of fury, he smashes his bloody fist straight into the ground, obliterating the last of the crystals as his eyes flare up with that classic, "I'm evil now" red glow. Completely consumed by the cringe, he screams that he's going to delete every last one of them for daring to look down on him. Wrapped in a dark, murderous new skin, Ling stalks away from the hotel. His mind is just a blender of pure rage, absolutely steaming over the public roasting he just endured, cursing how his entire life has become one giant fail compilation. His rage, needing a new target, quickly finds a much more vulnerable one. An image of his wife returning home with groceries flashes through his mind, and his villain origin story officially kicks off. He stands before their new apartment, his body glowing with a violent red energy as he vows to wipe his whole family off the server. The mother's eyes snap wide open, her internal alarm bells blaring. She sensed the incoming danger. Outside the apartment building, Ling Shang's eyes are lit up with menace as he spots his wife stepping right out the front door. Groceries go flying as she's paralyzed with fear, staring up at the dude towering over her, radiating a seriously bad news red aura. He practically spits the words "good luck" at her with a bone-chilling smirk. Meanwhile, back at the KBBQ joint, the good vibes at Bayi's birthday bash are about to get totally wrecked. A squad of guys in slick, we mean business black uniforms just crashed the party. A zoom in on a flashy gold pin on their cloaks screams one thing: the Divine Guild is in the house. Bayi, cool as a cucumber, just sips his drink and casually mentions to his crew, "Yep, that's a Divine Guild squad." Chi Yin immediately starts geeking out, gushing to Bayi that if he aces the Divine Guild Academy entrance, those guys will be his future work buddies. Then she corrects herself with a grin, adding that he'll probably end up being their boss. This news hits Bayi's other friend right in the feels, and his face just drops. He whines that he didn't realize this was a goodbye dinner, but Chi Yin fires back. "Who said anything about goodbye?" She declares with total conviction that she's gonna grind just as hard to get into that academy and stick by his side. But as Bayi watches the guild members walk past, his protagonist's senses start tingling with a weird, sinking feeling. He thinks to himself that the day's been way too perfect, filled with nothing but good surprises, which is always a red flag. Specs, the mood reader of the group, jumps in to kill the tension and get the party back on track. He reminds everyone, "Hey, it's Bayi's birthday. We can stress about all that other stuff some other time." His buddy chimes in, "Exactly. Birthdays are for celebrating, man." But even with all their hype man energy, Bayi just can't shake the feeling that something's seriously off. His friends, on the other hand, are totally ready to party. One of his pals raises a glass, ready to make a toast to the birthday boy, Bayi. The four of them slam their cups together with a loud "cheers" and wish him a happy birthday. But right at that moment, as their glasses meet, the camera snaps to a close-up of the glowing jade stone around Bayi's neck. At the exact same instant, his mom is seen shaking in pure terror, clutching her own matching necklace. She looks up, her eyes wide with horror, at her husband, Bing, who's standing over her, his entire body pulsing with that same sinister red energy. Her legs give out, and she crumples to the floor as he starts to mock her, asking if she's gotten so comfortable living it up behind his back that she's forgotten where she truly belongs. She tries to scramble away from him, absolutely desperate, but he just keeps laying into her with his venomous words, spitting poison as he demands to know which man she's been mooching off of to build this pathetic new life. His eyes are practically glowing with pure, unadulterated psycho energy, and a grin that could curdle milk spreads across his face. He pops his knuckles like some B-list movie villain and finishes his little monologue, spouting some nonsense about teaching her a lesson. Fueled by pure rage-a-hole, Ling Shang winds up to throw down on his terrified wife. But wait, his tiny brain gets sidetracked by something shiny on her wrist. He's totally stumped where she got it. It's a seriously expensive-looking bracelet, pulsing with a faint, ominous green light. While his wife is frozen in fear, his brain connects two dots that weren't even on the same page and comes to a galaxy-brained conclusion. He starts cackling like a madman, convinced she's been seeing some sugar daddy on the side, because that's obviously the only way they could afford this swanky apartment, right? In a totally predictable burst of loser energy, Ling Shang launches a haymaker at his defenseless wife, who's already bracing for impact on the floor. But just as his fist is about to connect, bam! The bracelet goes supernova with brilliant green energy, throwing up a solid magic shield, and from that blinding light, two absolutely massive, monstrous figures materialize. To Ling Shang's utter, slack-jawed disbelief, a giant, armored hand just casually snatches his fist out of the air, killing his attack dead in its tracks. He just stares, his brain buffering, completely unable to process what the heck just happened. Now standing guard in front of Bayi's mom are two epic-level summoned beasts, Warren and Warren, acting as a living wall between her and her scumbag husband. The newly summoned bodyguards turn to Bayi's mom and tell her not to sweat it. They've got her back and will protect her to their last breath. And right then, Bayi's mom gets hit with a flashback. She remembers her son, Bayi, handing her the bracelet, saying it was a little something for Mother's Day. He'd made her promise to wear it 24/7, especially when he wasn't there. Snapping back to the present, one of the summons, Warren, wastes zero time and lunges forward, its eyes blazing as it blitzes straight for Ling Shang. Ling Shang barely manages to scramble out of the way of a devastating strike infused with crackling purple energy. Suddenly, my dude finds himself on the back foot, forced into a 2-on-1 against Warren and the other beast, Warren. And yeah, even with all his supposed combat experience, he is getting absolutely wrecked. A massive blow from Warren connects clean, slamming into him with ridiculous force. The impact sends him skidding across the floor, and he's already leaking health points from a gash on his side. But instead of crying or, being scared, a messed up, bloody grin just stretches across Ling Shang's face. Wrapped in a crackling aura of edgy red lightning, he declares this beatdown is the perfect stress reliever he's been looking for. His eyes start glowing with that classic villainous light as he prepares to unleash his own final boss power. A wicked grin stretched across his face, absolutely buzzing for the beatdown to start. Just as Bayi was about to chow down on some birthday grub with his crew, the whole vibe just crashed and burned. He glances down, and yup, the jade artifact he's wearing is glowing. His face instantly goes ice cold. He knows exactly what that activation means. It's the "mom's in trouble" alarm. Not a single word escapes his lips. He just bolts upright, telling his totally bewildered friends he's got to handle something real quick, and with that, he's a blur, rocketing out of the restaurant. Tossing a bee right back, over his shoulder, he leaves his friends gawking at his empty seat. The second he's outside, Beiyi's already on the phone with Hong Qianshen, demanding an update on that intel he asked for. Hong's voice on the other end confirms Baiyi's absolute worst nightmare. His old man, Bing, got sprung from the joint early. And get this, Hong says the dude immediately crashed a party hosted by Hong's own father, only to get completely roasted and booted out on his butt. Hong wraps it up by saying that after that little stunt, Ling's location is a complete mystery. As the pieces start clicking into place, his call to his mom's phone goes straight to voicemail, which is all the confirmation he needs. Standing in that grimy alley, Baiyi's brain is working overtime, connecting the dots. He has a gut-wrenching realization. The hotel his fuming deadbeat dad got kicked out of is practically spitting distance from the new apartment he just set his mom up in. He knows if his old man, in his current rage-fueled state, stumbled upon his mom, she'd be in for a world of hurt. A surge of pure adrenaline hits him, and he grips the handlebars of his bike so hard the metal groans. He vaults onto his trusty steed and tears off into the night, his eyes blazing with that classic OP protagonist glow as he pedals like a madman to get home and save her. While Bayi is breaking the sound barrier on two wheels, he's still stressing, but then he remembers he left his summoned beasts, his so-called nameless brothers, on bodyguard duty. Yeah, about that. The scene back at the apartment is looking real bad. Ling Shang is there, crackling with a nasty red aura like some final boss, standing over the wrecked body of one of the summons, Warren, and literally scoffing at how pathetic it was. Welp, Beiyi's fears were spot on. He knew his low-tier summons wouldn't last 5 minutes against his dad's psycho power-up. The last one standing, Warren, is pulling a final defense, acting as a meat shield for Baiyi's mom and telling her to stay back as the ridiculously evil-looking Ling Shang closes in. Ling Shang just smirks, his creepy eyes glowing, as he casually swats away the poor summon's attacks like they're annoying flies. In a last-ditch, totally going to fail move, the battered Chiwan desperately grabs onto Ling's leg, as if that would actually accomplish anything. Visibly annoyed by the interruption, Ling glances down at the pest, calling it a complete nuisance. With one swift, brutal motion, he grabs the summon and gives its neck a permanent 180-degree twist. In a fit of pure overkill, he then proceeds to use the creature's body for some aggressive stress relief, his rage screaming for a total wipeout. Baiyi's mother gets a front-row seat to the whole gruesome spectacle, receiving a complimentary blood-splatter facial as she watches the horror unfold. With one of her bodyguards officially deleted, Ling Shang turns his ice-cold, murderous gaze toward his wife, casually holding his repainted knife. He announces that it's her turn now, then starts strolling toward her like he's got all the time in the world. His path is blocked only by the final summon standing its ground like a brave little toaster. The last one standing, Yaren, stares him down with a look of pure determination. In a final, desperate act of loyalty, it turns to Bayi's mother and screams at her to make a run for it. Without a moment's hesitation, the beast yeets itself at Ling Shang, wrapping him up in a tangle of angry green, vine-like tendrils. It roars at its master not to look back, pulling the ultimate sacrifice play to buy her a few precious seconds. Utterly horrified, Bayi's mother turns and bolts for her life. But the summon's desperate hug was, of course, useless. Ling Shang, crackling with some edgy red lightning, simply flexes and shatters the vines. He snags the creature with one hand, and, with all the effort of opening a pickle jar, brutally rips it in two, which, is generally bad for its health. As Bayi's mother is booking it, she peeks back to see her husband standing over the abstract art piece that used to be her last protector. He mockingly asks if she really thinks cardio is going to save her now. In a flash of red energy, he teleports directly into her path, completely blocking her escape. Cornered and shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, she looks up at him, looming over her, his eyes glowing with the sadistic joy of a cat that's finally caught the mouse. He taunts her, asking where exactly she plans on running to now. Trapped and totally defenseless, she can only stare back in pure, unadulterated terror. Getting bored of the chase, Ling Shang lunges and violently snatches the responsive jade stone from his wife's neck. Holding up the precious item, he lets out a nasty sneer, his eyes glowing with malice as he venomously asks if her other man gave her this little trinket, too. Without even waiting for an answer, he clenches his fist and crushes the stone to dust, shattering his wife's last sliver of hope along with it. His face a mask of pure fury, he raises his knife, ready to hit the game over button on her life. Just as the psycho is about to swing for the fences, his wife is completely paralyzed by sheer terror. But then, a faint pink glow envelops her as she clings to her son's promise, his words echoing in her mind. He told her, "Mom, if you're ever in deep trouble, just smash this little rock." His voice, a beacon of hope in her memory, swore that the second that stone shattered, he'd be there in a flash. And right on cue, just as the blade is about to make contact, a hand casually snatches it out of the air, pinching the razor-sharp edge with nothing but his bare fingers, stopping the attack cold just inches from her face. Yep, Bayi has made his grand entrance, materializing in a flash of light to play hero between his dear old mom and dad. His mom is just staring, her eyes bugging out, completely unable to process how her son just pulled a magic trick out of his hat. And Bailing? Oh, he's just as gobsmacked, his face twisting into an ugly mask of shock and rage at this party crasher. But with a look that could kill, Bayi just squeezes the blade a little tighter, and a seriously intimidating aura starts to flare up around him. He locks eyes with his so-called father and lays down the law. This little family drama? It's over. This whole mess triggers a nasty case of déjà vu, dragging up some seriously messed up memories from Bayi's previous life. He sees himself again, just a little kid, a powerless little boy, snot and tears everywhere, just screaming his lungs out for them to please stop. The memory rewinds to that one god-awful day. His father, Bing, completely losing his marbles, was going to town on his mom with a wooden plank, while little Bayi was tied up like a spectator at a horror show. The old man was just ranting and raving, yelling about how he's the only one breaking his back while they're out having fun, his brain completely warped by his own victim complex. And all little Bayi could do was watch the whole gruesome performance unfold. The sight of his mother's pain was seared into his vision as he screamed himself hoarse, begging his dad to cut it out. He begged, he pleaded, he cried, but his father was too far gone, completely lost in his own rage fest. Crushed by the sheer helplessness of it all, Bayi just wept as he watched his mother get knocked out cold. And he remembers exactly how this whole train wreck started. It was the very first weekend of his freshman year of high school. His mom had treated him to a day at an amusement park, and they just plain forgot to text his dad they'd be back late. Wouldn't you know it, that was the same day his dad bombed another job interview, and when he got home, he decided to take out all his loser frustrations on them. And just like that, the monster that was always hiding under his dad's skin finally came out to play. As his mom made one last desperate attempt to shield him, his father landed the final, game-ending hits, deciding to end her free trial of living right there in front of him. Forced to watch this absolute horror show, Young Bayi clenched his jaw as the sheer trauma overloaded his system, unlocking a massive power surge he didn't know he had. This little family drama triggered a surprise class change, leveling him up from a basic green-tier nuke warrior to the OP, legendary platinum-tier nuclear holy swordsman. Talk about a power-leveling cheat code. And so, the flashback hits its absolutely brutal final scene. Fueled by pure grief and this scary new power-up, young Bayi decided it was time to confront the final boss. In a total rage-quit moment, he snapped his restraints, like they were made of paper, snatched up the very chain that held him, and gave his dad a not-so-friendly new necklace. He completely lost his cool and sent his father straight to the respawn screen. But, plot twist, this revenge quest didn't drop any satisfying loot. Even with the main villain defeated, his mom's character was permanently deleted. The flashback fades out on the grim picture of a crying kid holding his dad's offline body next to his mom's. What a downer ending. Snapping back to the present-day drama, Bayi's determination is set in stone. He grabs the knife that was supposed to be the murder weapon for his mom, and basically says, "Not on my watch, not this time." Then, with a flex of his power, and then boom, he crushes his dad's knife with his bare freaking hand. Just like that, the weapon is toast. Bayi casually tosses the broken pieces aside and stands like a total badass in front of his mom, staring down his now weaponless and completely dumbfounded father. Finally recognizing his son, Bayi Shang sneers, wondering what idiot dared to interrupt, only to realize it's his own kid, Bayi. Absolutely furious, he lunges forward, yelling that this is just perfect, since he can now get a 2-for-1 family discount on Mayhem. Bayi's response? He just calmly summons the Hunwu blade, which pops into his hand, glowing with a seriously powerful green aura. As his dad flails at him with a wild swing, Bayi just effortlessly parries the attack, like he's swatting a fly, sending all that angry energy right back where it came from. The force of this epic counter sends the old man flying, making him kiss the pavement. Hard. Stunned, Bayi Shang starts coughing up some ketchup. He's totally floored by his son's insane power level. But that shock quickly turns to pure rage when he spots the weapon and starts screaming that it's his time's Hunwu blade. The penny drops. His son has been secretly using his high-tier hidden weapon this whole time. And as this family reunion gets spicy, Bayi's mom is just watching nervously from the sidelines while the two summoned pets, Yarin and Chiwarin, start their health regeneration sequence behind her. First things first, Bayi's got to make sure his mom is safe. So he turns to his summons, his so-called nameless bros, and orders them to escort her to a safe zone. Catching this little scene, Lingang's expression flips from pure rage to a twisted, curious grin. The gears in his head finally turn, and he realizes those two absolute unit beasts are his son's minions. He points a dramatic finger at Bayi as it all clicks. He's figured out his son is a rare dual-class user, one part nuclear warrior, one part flower element summoner. This discovery just breaks his brain, sending him into a fit of full-blown villainous laughter. He starts booming with some seriously messed up pride that his son awakened 2 professions at his age, shouting that Bayi is a true chip off the old block. Bayi, on the other hand, is just standing there with a deadpan look, totally unimpressed by the sudden praise. And just like that, Ling's proud papa routine vanishes, replaced by pure menace. He tells Bayi that just inheriting his awesome genes isn't enough, taking a heavy, threatening step forward. His voice drops to ice as he starts listing Bayi's crimes, like dipping out and moving away without so much as a text. Ling's rage meter starts to redline as he gets to what he calls his son's unforgivable sins. Number 1, raiding his safe, and number 2, getting his own dad sent to the slammer. He screams that Bayi must think he's hot stuff now with his 2 classes, arrogant enough to finally disobey dear old dad. With a final, animalistic roar, he zaps out of existence in a flash of red lightning, blitzing across the field with insane speed to launch a sneak attack. Watching from a safe distance, Bayi's mom shrieks a warning for him to be careful, but let's be real, Bayi was born ready. A brilliant blue energy starts crackling around his hand as a system window pops into view. The notification confirms it. He's class swapping to Cloud Element Mage. His eyes sharpen, instantly locking onto his father's position just as he reappears to land the blow. With a single, almost bored command, Bayi unleashes a literal tidal wave of ice, catching his dad mid-attack and trapping him in a frozen prison. Ling is now a complete popsicle, his face frozen in a perfect mask of shock and utter confusion as he struggles. He's wondering what kind of cheap hack this power is and why he's suddenly an ice sculpture, muttering in disbelief, questioning if his son really is a dual-classer. Standing before him completely chill, Bayi coldly corrects the guy, stating that he's dead wrong. The two now stand face to ice block. The power dynamic has been completely flipped, with Ling Shang trapped and totally helpless. As Bayi continues, his voice completely devoid of any emotion, telling his father that the number of classes he can awaken has absolutely nothing to do with him, before delivering the final, soul-crushing blow. From where he's standing, his old man is now officially worthless. That sick burn makes Ling's eyes bulge with pure rage, and he thrashes around in his ice trap, absolutely screeching about what his son just spouted. Totally triggered by this defiance, Bingshan lets loose a crackle of angry red lightning, scoffing at Bai's audacity. He tries to pull rank, reminding his son that while Bayi might be a freshly awakened rookie, he's a battle-hardened S-class veteran, roaring about who the Times Real Times head of the household is. With that, he shatters the ice prison in a massive explosion of pure boomer energy. However, Bayi is completely unbothered, now that he's rocking his new nuclear warrior class. He casually readies the Hun Wu blade and parries his dad's furious punch with a slick swing of his own. Not even giving the old man a second to process what just happened, Bayi pumps a ton of energy into the blade and zips forward, landing a devastating stab that goes right through his father's defenses like they were made of wet paper. Ling just stares down at the sword sticking out of his chest, his face a perfect picture of disbelief. He can't wrap his head around it, muttering that it's impossible for his son's attack to have pierced his guard. Wincing like he stubbed his toe, he yanks the blade out of his body and crumples to his knees, clutching the fresh new hole in his shirt and wondering how Bayi is dishing out so much damage. He insists a newbie E-class warrior shouldn't even be able to scratch his paint job, let alone hit this hard. Bayi just looms over his defeated father like a final boss, a sinister red aura swirling around him as he announces that, as of today, their family subscription has been officially cancelled, adding that his mother is cutting ties with him too. With an ice-cold, dead-eyed stare, Bayi tells Ling that in his world, he's now less than a zero. Utterly crushed by both the physical and emotional damage, Ling Shang starts trembling on the ground. Then, a creepy little chuckle escapes his lips, which slowly builds into a full-blown maniacal cackle as he kneels before the son who just completely wiped the floor with him. Refusing to accept this massive L, Bing Sheng just screams at his kid, trying to guilt-trip him by asking if he knows who slaved away to bring home the bacon for the family. He desperately insists that Bayi will always be his son, and that's a fact that can't be changed. Calling his son an ungrateful little punk, Ling Shang lunges forward for one last desperate swing. But Bayi effortlessly sidesteps the attack and counters with a swift, powerful kick right to his dad's face. The sheer force of the blow sends Ling Shang ragdolling across the pavement. While his old man scrambles to his feet like a newborn giraffe, Bayi casually strolls in for the finisher. Bing Shang throws another wild punch, a real swing and a misses special. But Bayi dodges it with zero effort, probably yawning. Absolutely mauling, Bing Shang lets out a frustrated roar, wondering why his hit stat is apparently set to 0. Spotting the massive opening, Bayi decides it's time to test out his new rapid-fire punch combo. Completely overwhelming the old man's pathetic defenses, the battered and broken Bing Shang staggers backward like a glitching NPC, spitting out some health potion, oh wait, that's blood, and muttering in shock that he's a class red-tier warrior. His tiny brain is still buffering, completely unable to process how he got so thoroughly dominated. Bayi strolls over, yanks his dad up by the hair, and icily asks if he needs his ears checked after that last memo. His face contorted with rage, he spells it out for the old man. You are so far beneath me, you're not even playing the same game. And cue the trauma-fueled flashback. Bayi's mind starts playing the highlight reel of his father's worst dad of the year moments. He recalls the horrific scenes where his father would train on his mother, while a young, helpless Bayi was tied up and forced to watch the cowardly spectacle. Bayi remembers his father's go-to move was unleashing his inner beast at home, all because he was too much of a coward to challenge anyone stronger than him out in the real world. He sees his father for what he truly is, not a warrior, just a weak, useless piece of trash. He relives the classic head meets pavement moment, courtesy of his dad, before snapping back to the present. Bayi grabs the thoroughly tenderized Bing Shang by the hair, yelling that he doesn't even qualify for the title of man. Fueled by pure, unfiltered rage, he reintroduces his father's face to the pavement, with feeling. Peeking from behind her summoned meat shields, Bayi's mom watches the whole beatdown, absolutely terrified, weakly calling out her son's name as the final boss lies defeated on the ground. Bing Shang starts crying for him to stop, trying to play the "I'm your dad" card, and begging him to remember their so-called family bond. That family bond line? Yeah, that was the rage trigger. It just cranked Bayi's anger up to 11. His eyes go absolutely arctic, filled with a cold, terrifying fury. He grabs his father by the collar and roars, asking where this precious family bond was when he was busy redecorating the walls with them. And just like that, Bayi's memory cues up another episode of My Father, the Monster. He flashes back to a time when he was just 7 years old, when his father grabbed him by the ear as he cried in pain, before repeatedly using his head to tenderize a nearby wall. He remembers pleading that he was wrong, while his terrified mother begged her husband to stop his insane rampage. But his pleas were on deaf ears. His father just gripped his ear even tighter, ripping a piece of it clean off and making him scream in unimaginable pain. Bayi's fury boils over as he recalls that the abuse wasn't a single event. It was a subscription service. Even with his ear shredded, Bayi's mind flashes back to the countless beatdowns his mom had to endure. He remembers it all, stretching back to the very day he was born. His mother was practically a regular at the ER, making almost monthly trips because his old man would throw hands for any stupid reason. The food was a little off? Pow. He was just in a bad mood? Wham. Bayi roars at his father, calling him out for using them as his personal punching bags. He screams that because of this pathetic excuse for a man, they never had one single, solitary, normal day. Fueled by a final, epic surge of fury, he smashes his father's face into the pavement one more time. Towering over the broken geezer, Bayi just scoffs at the nerve of his father to bring up family ties now, of all times. He asks him if a piece of trash like him even deserves a family. Bailing just lies there, a motionless sack of garbage on the cracked ground, completely and utterly defeated, struggling just to push himself up. He starts whimpering pathetic apologies, admitting he was wrong, and begging for another chance. He keeps promising he'll change, that he'll never be like that again. Finally, Bing Sheng goes full-on grovel mode, dropping to his knees and planting his forehead on the ground, bawling his eyes out about how he's truly sorry. All the while, Bayi just stares down at him, his eyes glowing with an icy light, totally unmoved by this pathetic performance. Bayi gazes down, his own eyes now flaring with a brilliant golden power. He tells his father this is a rerun of an old show. The second the old man realized he was outmatched, he turned on the waterworks and started begging. A memory from Bayi's past life hits him like a freight train, showing his father kneeling before him, right next to a shattered chain. He remembers actually falling for it back then, thinking his dad had genuinely changed. But the memory sours fast as he recalls the pure venom hiding behind those crocodile tears, his father's eyes burning with a murderous red glow. Bayi remembers how in that one moment of weakness, his father snatched a blade and lunged at him, fully intending to end him for good. Bayi knows that once a rabid dog gets a taste for blood, it never willingly drops the knife. And with that grim reminder, his resolve hardens into pure, unyielding steel. Right on cue, the system windows start popping up in his vision. A notification chimes, showing his adrenaline is spiking. Bing Shang looks up from the dirt, his face a bloody mess, but his expression is twisting from pathetic fear into raw defiance. More system alerts flash. Adrenaline is surging. His ultimate skill, Sanctuary, has begun to evolve. Engulfed in a blinding golden aura, Bayi hefts his Hun Wu blade, ready to deliver the final, game-ending blow. Ding! A system alert flashes, announcing he's just unlocked a brand new skill, Binary Judgment. Just as Bayi's about to test it out, his mom lets out a desperate scream of his name, her hand reaching out like she could actually stop him from here. Bayi just scoffs to himself, a scumbag suddenly finding remorse? Yeah, right, as if. Nah, it's way more efficient to just make sure his old man can never pull this kind of stunt again, permanently. He casually swings his blade, unleashing waves of golden energy that neatly disconnect his father's tendons. Bailing just shrieks like a banshee from the hit, collapsing into a puddle of his own making. Bing Sheng wails about his now useless limbs, looking absolutely terrified and completely wrecked. Bailing starts begging for his life, pulling out the "Oh, but I'm your father" card like it's some kind of trump. Bayi's not buying it. His face stays as cold and unbothered as a frozen tundra. Time for a class change. Switching over to Cloud Mage, Bayi whips up an ice shard and slaps a silence debuff right on his dad's mouth. That shuts him up real good. With a dead serious look on his face, Bayi lifts his weapon, ready to deliver the finishing move. He remembers, oh yeah, I already deleted this guy's save file once in my last playthrough. So really, what's the big deal about a repeat performance? But just as he's about to swing for the win, a voice cuts through the air, yelling at him that that's enough, which totally throws him off. He's like, who the heck was that? He can tell it's a woman's voice, and get this, it's coming from one of his own summons. It's Urine, his flower elemental summon, who's standing guard right behind his mom. Turns out, the little plant is acting like a long-range walkie-talkie, beaming his mother's voice straight into his head. Through the summon, his mom is begging him, telling him not to stoop to his father's level and become a monster too. She explains that the old man has already lost everything he ever cared about, his pride included. Her words actually seem to land a critical hit on his resolve. He pauses, looking back at her, his icy expression finally starting to thaw. She keeps going, explaining through Urine that his dad will now have to live every single day stewing in his own failure and resentment. And honestly, for a guy like him, that's the worst punishment imaginable. Bayi's face is a mess of conflict, but his mom isn't done with her speech. She's pleading now, saying she can't bear to watch him become the family's next villain. Even worse, she doesn't want his future to be some dark, edgy tragedy, and that triggers a nasty flashback from his previous life. He remembers getting locked up for taking out his old man, sentenced to rot away in a cage for the rest of his days. Man, the combined weight of his mom's words and that awful memory hits him like a ton of bricks. With a new kind of determination, he looks up and tells his mom, I get it. Then, he turns back to his dad, who's still stuck as a popsicle with a very concerned look on his face, and lays down the law. He's not going to end him, but getting anywhere near them again is completely off the table. Bayi's hand tightens around his glowing blade, the energy practically humming. He's about to drop a classic from his past life, unleashing the ultimate troll move, Binary Judgment. A brilliant, cross-shaped wave of golden energy erupts from his sword, a truly devastating sight. This bad boy is specifically designed to straight-up delete the awakened power of anyone at his level or below. The attack slams into Bing, and a system window pops up with the glorious confirmation, Awakened Power. Deleted. Bayi looms over his father, who's now just a regular, powerless dude. He casually sheathes his weapon and delivers the final verdict. His old man has until tomorrow to get out of the city and stay away from his mom for good. With the trash taken care of, he strolls over to his mom, who's safely guarded by her summons, and drops one last, ice-cold warning. He lets his father know that his summon, Ya Warren, has his scent locked in. If he ever dares to come within 3 kilometers of his mom again, he doesn't care if it means a life sentence in some awakened prison. Bayi will hunt him down and erase him without a second thought. Lying on the ground, utterly broken and stripped of everything that made him a threat, Bing can only stare at the sky, tears streaming down his face as the last of the ice melts away, whispering that he gets it. He's accepted his absolute, crushing defeat. And just like that, after the brutal showdown, the city night falls silent. Back in the safety of their apartment, Bayi stands in front of his mom, who's on the couch, flanked by her 2 loyal summons, Ya Wuran and Chi Wuran. He tells them to patch his mom up and make sure she's okay. One of them, Chi Wuran, chimes in, telling Bayi not to sweat it, because his old man never even laid a scratch on her. Kneeling down beside his mom, Bayi lets out a sigh of relief, glad he made it in time, but she just gently comforts him, reminding him she was perfectly fine. With a warm smile, she lets him know she's all right. As she pats his head, Bayi insists that's not good enough, muttering that he'll have to find her another magic jade stone for extra security. And then, out of nowhere, they both just freeze solid. They're just staring at each other, completely dumbfounded. Bayi is the first to break the silence, asking if she just talked. And she, looking just as shocked, asks the exact same thing back. Did I just talk? Bayi's shock melts away, replaced by a massive, ear-to-ear grin. He realizes it wasn't the summons telepathy that was her actual voice. His mom covers her mouth, totally floored. She can't believe it, wondering how on earth it's even possible that she can speak again. Ya Warren reports that his mom's speech issue was just some minor nerve damage, a total piece of cake for it to patch up. A few days cruise by. Bayi's just chilling on a massive tree branch, surveying the city, when his summon, Ya Warren, pipes up, asking if he really has to bounce. The big guy points out the obvious, like, dude, your mom and your pals are right here. And even suggests he could just ditch this whole revenge quest and, live a normal, boring life. But Bayi's like, nah, my mind's made up, explaining that he's already got everything sorted out. He tells them he's already covered the rent and plans to straight up buy the place once he's rolling in the dough. Plus, he's hooked his mom up with a brand new magic jade stone, so if she ever gets into another jam, he can teleport right to her side in a flash. For every other moment, he's basically making them her personal, oversized bodyguards. The two absolute units of summons are literally bawling their eyes out as they accept their master's mission. A little while later, Bayi's just watching from the dining table as his mom cheerfully cooks, with his two giant summons hilariously stuffed into aprons, trying to help out. He's thinking to himself that even though his mom thinks he's just off on some training journey, she has no clue he's not the same simple kid she raised anymore. His mind drifts to the messed up memories of his past life and the gnarly weight of all the hate he's got to deal with. He glances at the invitation on the table, his golden ticket to the so-called divine nation. That backstabbing punk is there, and this is his prime shot at some serious payback. An image of that traitor dude, with his creepy skull mask and white dreads, flashes in his head. Bayi knows that with this little piece of paper, he can speedrun his way to the divine nation way faster than in his last playthrough. Later that night, while standing in a crowd with his mom, he stares out at the city lights, pondering the insane road ahead of him. He's real with himself. He has no idea if he'll pull this off or even make it back in one piece. This could totally be a one-way trip, but it's a quest he's got to see through to the end. And then, out of nowhere, his mom gasps, "Oh my goodness, I completely forgot what time it is." A totally bewildered Bayi asks what she's on about. She just grins and says it's June 25th, which means it's time for the annual prayer thingy. She reminds him that on the first full moon of the summer solstice, the big shot mage from the Flower God Temple always makes a comeback tour to their little county. Bayi's brain finally booted up and remembered a tiny detail. His mom was a card-carrying member of the Flower God sect. He realized she never even asked when he was shipping out, and he conveniently forgot to mention he was leaving, like, tomorrow. He figures this is probably for the best, and decides to just ghost. Watching his mom pray, he admits he's always sucked at those mushy, face-to-face goodbyes anyway. Cut to a hospital room where Specs is laid up in bed, fresh out of surgery. A doctor's trying to calm his folks down, telling them the whole operation was a piece of cake. He's explaining it was just a minor tune-up, but Specs will need to chill for a few days. He also mentions they got super lucky their boy caught the issue before it got nasty. Totally freaking out with relief, Specs' parents start thanking the doc for basically saving their son's life, and his mom immediately starts nagging Specs not to even breathe too hard. From his bed, Specs is like, "Guys, chill. The doctor literally just said it was no big deal." But his mom wasn't having any of it. She goes full-on drama mode, insisting there's no such thing as a small surgery and orders him to stay put. Specs just sighs and looks away. Man, he thinks, could this timing be any worse? He's totally bummed he's gonna miss seeing Bayi off to the Divine Nation tomorrow, wondering if this is the last time he'll ever see his buddy. The next day, June 26th, all the students are mobbed at the train station, ready for their big trip to the Divine Nation. Over on the platform, one mom is having a full-blown meltdown saying goodbye to her daughter, Chi Yin. She's running through the classic mom checklist: take care of yourself, call every 5 minutes, and for the love of God, get some sleep. Then she plants a big, embarrassing kiss right on a beet-red Chi Yin's cheek. Her dad, looking mortified, tries to drag his weepy wife away. He's like, "Honey, it's only for half a month, not a life sentence." Meanwhile, the train's about to roll out. The students are all lined up on the platform, waving goodbye to their families like it's the end of the world. Amidst the chaos of the train station, you've got students swarming the platform, all surrounded by their doting families who came to see them off. And then, in total contrast, you've got Bayi, standing all by his lonesome at the far end of the platform like a classic lone wolf protagonist. Teacher Hang strolls over with a big ol' smile, asking why he's flying solo and if his parents couldn't make it. Bayi, master of the conversational dodge, just looks off into the distance and mutters that the train's about to show up. Teacher Hang and a nearby Chi Yin are kinda thrown by his non-answer, with the teacher asking, "Wow, always been this independent, have you?" Bayi's face darkens as he thinks to himself, getting all broody, just to hammer home the point that, yeah, he's a lone wolf. As the bullet train screams into the station, our boy stands there, giving the platform the ultimate cold shoulder, lost in his head, thinking, yep, used to being a solo act. And right on cue, the trauma reel starts playing. Cue the dramatic backstory montage explaining why he's got an emotional "do not disturb" sign up. First up, losing his entire family. We get a flashback to a pint-sized him, looking like he just lost a fight with a ketchup factory, desperately trying to get a response from his mom, who'd permanently logged off, while his dad lay nearby, also away from keyboard from life. Next on the tragedy tour, the part where he loses all his friends. He remembers the gut punch of hearing a buddy got KO'd by lung cancer before he even got to the boss fight, surgery. Then getting the news that another friend had just vanished. Poof, gone forever. And let's not forget, losing his master and the whole squad, basically reenacting that one dramatic anime scene, screaming their names as they got wiped in battle. Then, a vision of his pre-level up self pops in, rocking a face so hard it could cut diamonds. He's thinking, at this point, I'm a pro at watching people hit the exit on my life, one by one. His whole existence has just been one long, awkward goodbye party he never wanted to be at. He pictures himself as this tiny, emo figure getting sucked into a whirlpool of tragedy. You know, the dead parents, the missing friends, the fallen comrades. He's basically convinced himself he's achieved Zen master levels of accepting loss and just losing, like, everything. Meanwhile, back in the real world at the bustling train station, Teacher Huang is like, all right people, the train's here, let's move it. But unlike the rest of the normies, Bayi is just standing there, rocking his best sad anime protagonist look, deep in a flashback about being alone. Just as he's about to step onto the train of solitude, he hears someone shout his name. He whips around, totally shook, and stares at a sight that just broke his brain. It's his mom, who actually came to see him off, and she brought backup, his two buddies from middle school, Specs, who's currently rolling in style in a wheelchair, and his other pal. Bayi's friend starts explaining to Teacher Huang how Specs' parents were basically guarding him like a hawk post-surgery, and if Specs hadn't thrown a fit about saying goodbye, there was no way he could have pulled off this hospital jailbreak. Bayi, suddenly switching from lone wolf to mom friend, tells Specs he should be in bed, but Specs just grins and waves it off, promising he feels great. Then, with a totally earnest face, he tells Bayi to, actually take care of himself on this trip. The other buddy shoves a bag at Bayi, loaded with a care package of clothes and snacks. Bayi tries to do the polite, oh no, you shouldn't have thing, reminding them they already hooked him up for his birthday, but Chi Yin just grins and tells him to quit being a weirdo and take it. Up next, then it was Mom's turn, and she whipped out her own special item, a prayer bracelet from the Flower God Temple. She told me this little trinket was basically an OP buff. She carefully slipped the green beaded bracelet into my hand, saying she wanted me to have some extra plot armor. And bam, right in the feels, my mom actually went all the way to the temple just to pray for my safety. I started to wonder if her mom tuition was tingling, telling her this whole trip was about to be a massive dumpster fire. Meanwhile, Teacher Huang was waving her arms like a lunatic, yelling at us to get our butts on the train because our epic training arc was officially starting, right now. I hopped aboard, taking one last look at my mom and the crew seeing me off. As I sank into my seat with a chill smile, I couldn't help but think how much everyone, myself included, had seriously leveled up this past month. Outside, my mom, Specs, and the rest of my fan club were waving goodbye frantically, shouting all kinds of "don't die out there" encouragements. I just gave them a cool, casual wave back. Guess I've got people waiting for my grand return now. I clenched my fist around the bracelet, feeling its power. Or maybe just the beads. My new mission: speed run this whole adventure and get back home before the next season drops. Elsewhere, in a totally cliché move, someone was perched high on a rooftop overlooking the station. The vice captain, of all people, was watching my train dramatically chug off into the distance. He muttered to himself that the package was on the move, and my special delivery items would be waiting in the Holy Nation. Turns out this dude is Liu Zhongzhang, the S-rank big boss of the Flower God sect. He spoke into his comms, probably asking if there were any other last-minute side quests. Then he sighed, figuring from here on out, it was all on me. Cue the dramatic cut to me on the train, looking all thoughtful and main character-like. Right beside me, Chi Yin was rambling on about how the Ultimate Schools team already bounced on an earlier train to sort out their sea-crossing paperwork. She was practically vibrating with excitement, pointing out that we were about to hit the Zhang Nation border, with the Holy Nation just a stone's throw away. Just then, Teacher Huang came strutting down the aisle like she owned the place, officially kicking off our little field trip. She laid out the plan. It's a full day's journey just to step foot in the Holy Nation, so we'd be having a little slumber party at the border, but not before a fun field training exercise. While Chi Yin was giving me that classic, please don't do anything stupid look, that punk Xiaoling was sitting a few seats back with a villainous grin plastered on his face. I could practically hear his internal monologue. Oh, this is gonna be good. Bayi has no idea what kind of welcome party I've planned. As our budget bullet train screeched toward the station, an announcement declared our imminent arrival in the Holy Nation. Teacher Huang started her spiel, laying down the ground rules for the students. She recited the usual propaganda about how the gods created their world and are still watching over them like glorified babysitters. She hammered home that the gods' families have all the power and that the Holy Nation is the turf for two of these so-called divine clans. Her tone got real serious as she laid down the law for the students. They had to follow the gods' rules to the letter, or they'd be asking for a world of trouble. Bai's jaw tightened as he listened, the very mention of the gods making him see red. Teacher Huang then switched gears, breaking down the bureaucratic nightmare of the entry process. She explained there were 3 checkpoints to get from the Jiang Nation into the Holy Nation, and that they'd already cleared the first one. That was just the formality of flashing a special invitation pass from the Divine Guild to get on the train. The second checkpoint, she continued, is this border station we're pulling into right now. This is where everyone had to register all their info and get a full body scan for security. The checks were so over the top they'd take an entire day, meaning they wouldn't officially set foot in the Holy Nation until tomorrow. This lovely little delay was the official first stop on their big training adventure. After all that, the group was finally shuffled off to their training grounds, some random patch of wilderness right on the border of the Jiang Nation. On the morning of June 27, 2105, the real fun, their combat training finally began. Bayi, now decked out in the fresh threads his friend gave him, stood with the rest of the group. Chi Yin walked up with a grin, telling him the new outfit made him look like a real big shot. His new vibe wasn't going unnoticed by the other students, either. A couple of upperclassmen girls from the high school division immediately locked onto him. One pointed him out as the legend who dissed the ultimate school team, while the other couldn't stop talking about how hot he was. They wasted no time walking right up to him, one of them asking, "You're Bayi, right?" She added, "We heard you completely demolish the Academy's all-time high score." The girls then shot their shot, asking if he'd be willing to carry them through the training. Totally unimpressed by the 2 seniors, Bayi just put up a hand, giving them a silent but clear nope. But instead of getting offended, the girls just started giggling. They actually thought his ice-cold rejection was cute. As Bayi turned and walked away, his mind was already on his own grind. He knew all the monsters in this wilderness were just low-level trash mobs, completely useless to him now. He scoffed internally, thinking this was a complete waste of his time, especially now that he had already broken through to class. The grind was getting real. Leveling up was going to be a total slog unless he found a new exploit. And, right on cue, some slick-looking dude in a suit saunters up to a couple of girls, bragging about how he was also the top dog in his class. He scoffs at the school's lame-o tests against caged monsters, calling them a total joke. He's all like, "The real-world beasts? They're a whole different ballgame, ladies." He smoothly drapes an arm around one of the girls, gives a cheesy wink, and purrs, "This is where the real pros show their stuff, you know, actual combat." Turns out, this peacock is Yoongjun, a class stellar warrior from the high school division. And just like that, the girls are totally smitten, begging him to let them tag along for the training exercise. Jongjun, loving the attention, just laughs and agrees, while our boy Bayi strolls right past the whole cringy scene without even blinking, completely unbothered by their little soap opera. A little while later, Teacher Huang wrangles all the students together for one last pep talk. With a bright smile, she reminds them that they're all supposed to be the school's best and brightest. So, she launches into the rulebook for the millionth time, starting with the safety checklist: train only within the designated area, people. No lone wolf shenanigans. And please, know your limits with the monsters. And be back at the campsite by 8 p.m. sharp. But before she could even continue, the antsy students, with Jongjun leading the charge, just start yelling that they've heard it all before. A whole mob of them just stampedes into the forest, all hyped up to start smashing some monsters. Meanwhile, standing off to the side, Zeeling watches the lemmings run off to their doom with this wicked little smirk on his face. Yeah, you can just tell his master plan is already cooking. Cut to the capital of the Holy Nation. Guildmaster Hongbing rolls in and gets the whole welcome back boss treatment from his underlings. They get him up to speed. The big hunting competition is about to kick off, and the captain of the Shannon team has been twiddling his thumbs waiting. We've got Vice Captain Lu Zheng on the scene. Jung pipes up, commenting on how cushy the ultimate school team has it. He points out how they got to ride the guildmaster's private train and skip all the annoying security checks. Hong Bing, chomping on a cigar, just glances at the kid next to him and tells him to go hang with the team. And, surprise, surprise, the kid is none other than his own son, Hong Chung, who looks like he's about to wet his pants, but he nods anyway. And we're back in the jungle, baby. The training is in full swing, and Jong Jun is already showboating, one-shotting some poor lizard monster with a flashy, glowing punch. He poses triumphantly over the dead E-class beastie, a dramatic red aura flaring up around him for extra cool points. His two upperclassmen fangirls go absolutely wild for him, screaming about how slick a red tier class pro is. Of course, Jung Jun just shrugs it off like it's nothing. Meanwhile, Bayi is completely tuning them out, more interested in checking his own stats on a holographic screen. He's taking a look at his progress, noticing that all three of his classes, the Cloud Element Mage, the Nuclear Warrior, and the Flower Element Summoner, have finally hit class. Problem is, he's been hard stuck at this rank for over 10 days now. Bayi knows the drill. To get any real EXP, he needs to punch up and fight stronger monsters. But sadly, the mobs in this zone are scattered and pathetically low level, barely worth any experience points at all. Wasting time on mobs weaker than him gives practically zero rewards, making this leveling grind an absolute slog. And just like that, the universe decides to spice things up. The oh-so-confident Jung Jun gets absolutely yeeted by a giant purple spider thing, which is apparently a D-class flower warrior. He and the two girls are freaking out, realizing this 8-legged freak is way out of their league. Banged up and panicking, Jung Jun plops on the ground, wailing for someone to help him with the poison, screaming his head off that this is a full-powered, unsealed D-class monster from the wild. After effortlessly wrecking the B team, the massive spider beast locks on and charges straight for Bayi. While the other students are screaming for him to run, Bayi just stands there, calmly summoning his glowing green blade, totally ready to face the beast, and with a single, casual swing of his blade, Bayi effortlessly one-shots the giant D-class spider that had the other students running for their lives. System notifications pop up confirming the kill, rewarding him with some EXP and a poisonous spider leg for his troubles. Jang Jun and the two upperclassmen just stare, their jaws practically on the forest floor, completely stunned by his power. Bayi, on the other hand, couldn't look more bored if he tried. He mutters to himself that loot from these weakling monsters is just useless junk that clogs up his inventory. It gets him thinking about how the Divine Guild hogs all the high-level monster zones, which is exactly why breaking through the wall between class and B-class is such a massive grind. With a flick of his wrist, he just tosses the D-class item away like it's trash. The silver-haired girl is absolutely floored. Like, did he really just chuck a D-class item? But Bayi just gives her a whatever wave. He recalls from his past life that there's a sweet spot for high-grade magic crystals near the Holy Nation's border. So, he decides to ditch the small fry and head deeper into the forest for some real materials. Later that evening, just before 8 p.m., Bayi is deep in the spooky part of the forest. He's already snagged several magic crystals, but his spidey senses are tingling. He knows these crystals are formed from super-concentrated energy. These things usually pop up in demon lairs or areas crawling with mobs. He picks one up for a closer look and realizes it's been totally juiced, like something sucked all the mana right out of it. A system prompt pops up, withered magic crystal. Glancing around, he sees the whole forest is looking pretty dead too. It's like all the trees have been turned into giant, wooden raisins. He's thinking, what kind of demon has a life-drain skill this OP? No way a measly D-class monster could pull this off. His little investigation hits a literal wall, a massive cliff with a waterfall. But down at the bottom of the falls, a little something-something on the ground catches his eye. It's a busted canister, leaking some weird, glowing green goo. Naturally, he squats down for a better look. He's like, what in the world is this stuff? Meanwhile, back at camp, the clock strikes 8 p.m. Teacher Hang is playing Master Chef over a huge bonfire, grilling up some giant monster drumsticks for the starving students. The kids are all bug-eyed, totally freaking out that their teacher solo-farmed this many D-class monsters. With a grin, Teacher Hang explains that this is all part of the lesson. It's a wilderness survival sim, and you gotta grind for your own grub, people. She calls them out, saying they were so busy fighting all day they forgot about the most important stat, hunger. A couple of wiped-out students start whining that the school trip didn't even have a snack bar, giving a roasted tentacle the side eye, probably wondering if it's gonna give them a debuff. Meanwhile, Teacher Hang and Chi are just chilling by the fire, munching on some monster barbecue. Teacher Huang mentions that Bi and Zelling are still out on their forest adventure and tells everyone to save them some leftovers. Then Xian starts buttering up her teacher, saying she figured Teacher Huang was just some bookworm, but she's actually a total beast in a fight. Teacher Huang just laughs and says that before she got into teaching, her big dream was to join the Divine Guild, or maybe become a priestess. She lets out a little sigh, admitting she never had the stats to even apply. Then she leans in, telling Qian this is her first ever trip to the Holy Nation. She gives a heartfelt thanks to Qi and the rest of the class, explaining that it's all because their and Beiyi's performance was so top tier that she finally got the chance to visit the Holy Land she's been fangirling over her whole life. Just as Qi is about to say something, two glowing red eyes pop open in the shadows right behind her. Teacher Huang's face goes white with shock. Without a second thought, she yeets Qi out of the danger zone, and bam! A massive, sharp green leg explodes from the darkness, skewering Teacher Hang right through the chest. Now, wearing a fresh coat of her teacher's insides, a horrified Qian just shrieks her name. The rest of the students join the choir of terror, wondering what in the world that thing is. At the exact same time, Bayi is doing his best impression of a track star through the creepy forest. He knows he's got to book it and tell everyone to scram, like yesterday. It finally clicks that this whole disaster is probably tied to that busted Zung industrial container he stumbled upon. Meanwhile, back at camp, the fatally punctured Teacher Huang grabs hold of the new appendage sticking out of her. With what's left of her HP bar, she tells the students to leg it and find the nearest guild for a rescue mission. Then, for the grand finale, she yanks the limb clean out of her chest, unveiling their party crasher. A gigantic, nope-on-legs bug monster with glowing red eyes looms over them, declaring that all the snacks now belong to it. The students collectively realize, with dawning horror, that they've just walked into a B-class boss raid. A system window pops up, identifying the creature as a B-class flower warrior, charmingly named the Corpse Spider. It's smart, flagged as an extremely high risk, and is a proud product of the Ziying Industrial Laboratory. The official warning states that anyone unfortunate enough to see this monster should immediately turn tail and spam call the Divine Guild for help.